As Takashi stood there with a cold, heartless grin on his face, he looked at his former friends, Reina and Rikako. The two girls stood before him, their eyes locked onto Takashi's, both wary and cautious. "You two really don't know what you're missing," Takashi said, his voice laced with malice. "The power, the freedom, the thrill of taking what you want when you want it." Reina and Rikako exchanged glances, unsure of what to do. They knew that Tsukasa and his friends weren't exactly their cup of tea, but they didn't want to throw in their lot with Takashi either. "You're insane, Takashi," Rikako said, her voice trembling slightly. Takashi just laughed, his eyes glinting with a crazed light. "Insane? No. I'm just smarter than all of you. I see the big picture, while the rest of you are stuck in your little worlds, playing at being heroes." "You're wrong," Reina said, her voice firm. "We may not always see eye to eye with Tsukasa and the others, but at least they have a sense of honor and loyalty. Something you clearly lack." Takashi's eyes narrowed, and he lunged at the girls, his movements fluid and graceful. Rikako and Reina immediately sprang into action, dodging and weaving as they tried to land a hit on Takashi. The three of them moved with blinding speed, their movements becoming a blur as they clashed in midair. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal, and the sound of their battle echoed through the forest. "You're both weak," Takashi taunted, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're nothing compared to me." Reina and Rikako gritted their teeth, their eyes blazing with determination. They refused to let Takashi get the best of them, and they fought with all their might, refusing to give up. But then, Takashi did something unexpected. He unleashed a powerful jutsu, one that neither Reina nor Rikako had ever seen before. They were caught off guard, and before they knew it, they were both knocked out cold. Takashi stood over their prone forms, a wicked grin on his face. "Well, what's it going to be, ladies? Are you going to join me or not?" Rikako and Reina groaned, slowly starting to stir. They exchanged a look, then nodded. "Fine," Rikako said, her voice heavy with resignation. "We'll join you. But don't expect us to like it." Takashi just laughed, his eyes gleaming with a fierce intensity. "Oh, don't worry. You'll like it just fine." Takashi arrived at the Akatsuki's hideout, where Pain was waiting for him. The atmosphere was tense, and Takashi could feel the eyes of the other members on him as he approached their leader. "Takashi," Pain greeted him with a nod. "I trust your mission was successful?" "Yes, Pain-sama," Takashi replied. "I have brought 2 new members to the Akatsuki." "Interesting," Pain mused. "And who are these new members?" Takashi gestured for Rikako and Reina to step forward. "These are the 2 I brought," he said. "I forced them to join, but I'll take responsibility for keeping them in line." Pain looked at the 2 new members with interest. "I see," he said. "And how do you plan on doing that?" Takashi grinned coldly. "By making sure they know that if they step out of line or betray the Akatsuki, they'll meet the same fate as those who have done so before them." Pain nodded slowly. "Very well, Takashi. I trust you will keep them in check. Remember, any weakness in our organization could mean the end of us all." Takashi bowed his head. "Understood, Pain-sama. I will not fail." With that, Pain dismissed Takashi and the new members, leaving them to settle in at the hideout. Takashi's mind was already racing with plans to make sure Rikako and Reina remained loyal to the Akatsuki, even if it meant eliminating them himself. He knew he had to be ruthless in order to succeed in his new position, and he was willing to do whatever it took to prove himself. Takashi and Tobi were assigned to work together, and as they were heading towards their mission location, they ran into Ayane, Fujishi, Tenten, and Tsukasa, who were going the opposite way. As soon as they saw each other, Takashi wasted no time and unleashed a fire-style, majestic destroyer flame towards Tsukasa and his friends. Tsukasa and the others swiftly dodged the attack, but before they could react, Takashi caught them off guard with a shadow clone barrage combo. Tenten was overwhelmed, and Takashi took out his katana to finish her off, but Tsukasa shielded her and got stabbed. Fujishi and Ayane immediately fought off Takashi together, but Takashi laughed, and his bloodlust kicked in. Suddenly, two Jonins named Kaz and Guro came around the back, but Toby asked Takashi if he could just sit and watch for now. Takashi unleashed his dojutsu, which was similar to Yome, and used his kenjutsu skill, Iaido, way of Ei, on Kaz and Guro, eliminating them in one swift motion. As Takashi turned around, he was covered in blood, and he licked it off his sword. Tsukasa and the others were shocked, and Ayane screamed, "Takashi! What have you become?" Takashi turned towards them with a cold expression and replied, "I've become what I was meant to be, a killer, and a powerful one at that." Tsukasa, who was wounded but still conscious, looked at Takashi with a hint of sadness and said, "Takashi, we were friends once. What happened to you?" Takashi looked at Tsukasa and replied with a smirk, "I realized that true power can only be achieved through strength, and I will do whatever it takes to obtain it." Fujishi stepped forward and glared at Takashi. "You're a monster, and we won't let you get away with this." Takashi chuckled and replied, "I'm not a monster. I'm just doing what needs to be done to achieve my goals." Toby, who was still watching from the sidelines, shook his head and muttered to himself, "What have I gotten myself into?" As the scene ended, the audience could see a flashback of Takashi and Tsukasa being friends and training together. The other characters started to talk, trying to come up with a plan to stop Takashi, while Tsukasa was left lying on the ground, wounded and betrayed by his former friend. Takashi looked around at the group, feeling bored and restless. He turned to Toby, his new partner in crime, and asked, "Are we just going to stand around here? Or are we going to get going to our destination?" Toby nodded. "Right, we need to eliminate the Hidden Star Village leader. We can't let them get in the way of our plans." Ayane stepped forward, her eyes blazing with anger. "You're insane, Takashi. How could you become so twisted?" Fujishi stepped forward as well, her hand on her sword. "We won't let you hurt innocent people. We'll stop you, no matter what." Takashi just smirked. "You guys are so predictable. It's almost boring." He turned to Toby. "Let's go. We have a job to do." Toby nodded, and the two of them disappeared in a flash of smoke. The others watched them go, feeling helpless and unsure of what to do next. The group sat in silence, their minds still reeling from the intense battle with Takashi. Tsukasa's wounds had been treated, but the emotional scars of what they had witnessed still lingered. Suddenly, the air around them began to shake with an overwhelming force. It was Tsukasa's chakra, seething with anger and rage. Everyone quickly turned to him, concerned about his well-being. Tenten held him close, trying to calm him down. Naruto stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Tsukasa, we're all here for you. You don't have to keep all this anger inside. Talk to us, let us help you." Tsukasa took a deep breath and closed his eyes, trying to calm his chakra. When he opened them again, they were filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I was so consumed by rage that I forgot what's really important. You guys, you're my family. My true friends. And I will never let anything or anyone break our bond." Ayane stepped forward and put a hand on his shoulder. "We're all in this together, Tsukasa. We'll always have each other's backs, no matter what." The rest of the group nodded in agreement, a renewed sense of determination on their faces. They had been through a lot, but they knew that they were stronger together. Tsukasa wiped away his tears and gave them all a small smile. "Thanks, guys. Let's go kick some Akatsuki butt." And with that, they all stood up and continued on their journey, united in their goal and their unbreakable bond. Tsukasa, Hinata, and Naruto landed before Deidara, the Akatsuki member. Deidara mocked them, telling them that his art is like an explosion. Tsukasa was fueled by his rage and unleashed his signature taijutsu attack, copied from Rock Lee, impressing both Hinata and Naruto. The blow finished Deidara off in one swift move, but to their surprise, he got up and began forming clay from his mouth. "My art is like an explosion," Deidara yelled as he created a bird out of clay, signaling the start of an intense fight between the three ninja and him. Meanwhile, Sakura, Tenten, and Sasuke faced off against Sasori, Reina, and Rikako. Sasori soon realized that his former teammates had betrayed him and he was outnumbered. The fight ended with Sasori's death at the hands of Reina and Rikako. After both battles, the groups regrouped and realized that they were all in this together, no matter what. The seriousness of the situation was apparent, and the friends knew that they had to stick together to defeat the Akatsuki and protect their village. As Takashi stood in front of Reina and Rikako, his eyes narrowed as he felt a wave of anger and betrayal wash over him. You two betrayed us," he snarled, unsheathing his katana. "I trusted you both." Reina and Rikako stood their ground, their eyes cold and calculating. "We did what was necessary for our own goals," Rikako said, her voice dripping with venom. "The Akatsuki was never going to help us achieve what we wanted." Takashi's bloodlust kicked in as he charged forward, swinging his sword with deadly accuracy. Reina and Rikako were fast, dodging and weaving as they tried to land a hit on him. But Takashi was too skilled, too powerful, and he soon had the upper hand. "Die!" Takashi growled, unleashing his crystal Kekkei Genkai Jutsu, Ikazuki no Kiba. His blade glinted in the moonlight as he struck them both down, their bodies falling to the ground lifelessly. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and Hinata continued to fight Deidara, their movements fluid and coordinated. Tsukasa's rage had given him a newfound strength, and he copied Hinata's Byakugan movements with ease. Naruto watched from the sidelines, knowing that his attacks would only get in the way. As they fought, Tsukasa and Hinata had a moment of bonding, their eyes meeting and a sense of mutual respect passing between them. "We're in this together," Hinata said, determination in her voice. Tsukasa nodded, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "We'll take down Deidara together," he said, and Hinata smiled. The scene was intense, with a lot of dialogue and a sense of impending danger hanging over them all. But they knew that they had to fight, to protect their friends and their village from those who would do them harm. Takashi made his way back to the Akatsuki headquarters and approached Pain. "Takashi. I have completed the mission you gave me, Pain. I took care of the ones who betrayed us." Pain. "Very well, Takashi. Your loyalty is appreciated." Meanwhile, Tsukasa, Hinata, and Naruto were fleeing the scene of the battle with Deidara. As they ran, they thought they had defeated him, but suddenly, there was a huge explosion behind them. They turned to see Deidara, who had decided to end his own life by using his explosive clay. "Hinata, is everyone okay?" Naruto. "Yeah, we made it out just in time." Tsukasa. "That was close. Deidara was stronger than I anticipated." Hinata. "You did well, Tsukasa. We all fought together and made it out alive." Naruto. "Let's go back and regroup with the others. We have to stop Takashi and protect the Hidden Star Village." Tsukasa. "Right. Let's go." Tsukasa and the others rushed over to where Reina and Rikako were supposed to be. When they got there, they saw their lifeless bodies lying on the ground. Tenten gasped and covered her mouth in shock. "Oh no, what happened to them?" she whispered. Tsukasa gritted his teeth, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow. "It's Takashi. He killed them," he said through clenched teeth. Hinata placed a hand on Tsukasa's shoulder, trying to comfort him. "We have to stop him," she said softly. Tsukasa nodded. "I know. We have to make him see the errors of his ways." Naruto looked around, scanning the area for any signs of Takashi. "Where could he have gone?" he asked, looking back at the group. "I have a feeling he's gone back to the Hidden Star Village." "We need to follow him," Tsukasa said firmly. The group set off, determined to find Takashi and stop him before he caused any more harm. As they walked, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt. He felt like he had let Reina and Rikako down, and that he was partly responsible for their deaths. But he knew he had to stay strong and focus on the task at hand. They had to stop Takashi before he caused any more pain and suffering. The team of four-leaf shinobi, led by Mio, was caught off guard by Takashi's sudden appearance. Mio swiftly blocked Takashi's attack and ordered his students to escape while he held off the enemy. Ayane, Tsukasa, Tenten, and Fujishi soon arrived to provide backup for Mio. As Takashi and Fujishi faced off against each other, attacking with jutsus and taijutsu strikes, Takashi noticed the other hidden shinobi and called them out to turn the fight into a 1v4. He used his fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu, to distract them, forcing them to jump upwards. He then used his clone barrage taijutsu attack to slam them down into the ground, leaving them badly beaten. Takashi approached Tsukasa, who was trying to stand up, and attempted to kill him. However, Fujishi got in the way and took the fatal blow. She turned to Tsukasa and said, "I love you, Tsukasa. See you on the other side." Tsukasa was devastated and angry, and Takashi's grin only made things worse. In a fit of rage, Tsukasa unleashed one of his Ketsuryugan jutsus, the Blood Dragon Ascension, on Takashi, injuring him. Takashi then retreated into the shadows, leaving Tsukasa to mourn Fujishi's death. As Tsukasa looked down at Fujishi's lifeless body, he screamed in agony, remembering their past moments together. "Why, Takashi? Why did you do this?" Tsukasa yelled, tears streaming down his face. Ayane, Tenten, and Mio approached him, offering their condolences. The scene was a sad one, with dialogues reflecting the sorrow and anger of the characters. Fujishi's death was a major turning point in the story, marking the beginning of Tsukasa's determination to make Takashi realize his mistakes. Tsukasa was holding Fujishi's lifeless body, hugging her tightly as tears streamed down his face. His friends Ayane, Tenten, and Naruto stood around him, offering comfort and support. "Tsu, I'm so sorry," Ayane said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Tenten kneeled beside him, placing a gentle hand on his back. "We're all here for you," she said softly. Naruto looked at his friend with a sad expression. "I can't imagine how you must be feeling right now," he said. Tsukasa continued to hold Fujishi, his mind filled with memories of their time together. He remembered their first meeting, when Fujishi had approached him after a mission and offered him some of her food. He remembered the way she had always been there for him, offering support and encouragement even when he felt like giving up. As he sat there, holding her lifeless body, he felt an overwhelming sense of grief and loss. He knew that he would never be able to forget her, or the sacrifice she had made for him. "I'll never forget you, Fujishi," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I promise I'll make Takashi pay for what he's done." His friends offered words of comfort and support as he sat there, lost in his memories of Fujishi. Though he knew that nothing could bring her back, he found some solace in the fact that he had friends who cared for him and were there for him in his time of need. As Tsukasa held Fujishi's lifeless body, his emotions became too much for him to handle. He collapsed to his knees, hyperventilating and shaking uncontrollably. His friends rushed over to him, trying to comfort him and calm him down. Sakura, Ino, Karen, Senna, Tamari, Konan, Keita, Kaharu, Taiku, Rin, Fu, Sasuke, Naruto, Neji, Hinata, Hanabi, Sai, Kiba, Shikamaru, Rock Lee, Choji, Shino, and Ayane all gathered around him, trying to help in any way they could. "Tsukasa, it's okay. We're here for you," Sakura said, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to go through this alone," Ino added, holding his hand. Kiba sat next to him and put an arm around his shoulders. "We're all here for you, man. You don't have to hold it in." Tsukasa continued to hyperventilate and cry, his friends surrounding him with their comforting words and presence. Eventually, they decided to rest for the day in a nearby cabin, allowing Tsukasa time to process and grieve for his loss. The group spent the day comforting Tsukasa, sharing stories and memories of Fujishi, and supporting each other through the difficult time. Even though the pain of losing a friend was still raw, they knew they had each other to lean on during this time of grief. As Ayane was walking through the forest, Takashi suddenly appeared in front of her, blocking her path. Well, "Well, if it isn't Ayane," Takashi said with a smirk. "You're the last one left for me to take care of." Ayane immediately went into a fighting stance, ready to defend herself. "I won't let you hurt anyone else," she said firmly. The two began to fight fiercely, exchanging blows and jutsus. However, Takashi was clearly the stronger of the two and soon had Ayane on the defensive. He kicked her in the gut, causing her to double over in pain. As Takashi raised his hand to finish her off, a sudden gust of wind blew through the trees. Tsukasa had arrived just in time to save Ayane. "Takashi, I won't let you hurt anyone else," Tsukasa declared, as he lunged at his former friend. The two began to fight, their movements fluid and graceful as they clashed with deadly intent. Despite Tsukasa's skills, however, Takashi was still too strong for him to defeat alone. Tsukasa quickly realized he needed backup and yelled for the others to come help. As the rest of their friends arrived on the scene, Takashi was momentarily distracted, which gave Tsukasa the opening he needed to kick him into two trees. Ayane, still wounded, was helped to her feet by Sakura and Ino, who tended to her injuries. Meanwhile, the rest of the group surrounded Takashi, ready to take him down once and for all. Tsukasa stood ready to face Takashi, his Ketsuryugan blazing with an intensity that could match Takashi's lightning chakra mode. Memories of their past together as friends and rivals flashed through Tsukasa's mind, reminding him of the times they had trained together and competed against each other. But now, their friendship was shattered, and Tsukasa had to fight for the sake of everyone else, including the memory of Kobayashi, Fujishi, Reina, and Rikako. Takashi smirked as he stared down Tsukasa. "You've grown strong, Tsukasa. But I'm afraid it's not enough to defeat me." Tsukasa didn't respond, instead choosing to unleash a barrage of black lightning at Takashi. The dark energy crackled and sizzled as it streaked towards Takashi, who responded by using lightning release, purple electricity to counter it. The two attacks collided in a deafening explosion of lightning and darkness, and the force of the impact sent shockwaves rippling through the ground. As the smoke cleared, Tsukasa and Takashi stood, facing each other once again. "I won't let you hurt anyone else," Tsukasa growled, his Ketsuryugan flaring with renewed intensity. Takashi simply grinned. "You talk big, Tsukasa. But you're no match for me." The two charged towards each other, their fists and feet lashing out with deadly speed and precision. Takashi's lightning-based attacks were countered by Tsukasa's black lightning, and Tsukasa's Ketsuryugan allowed him to anticipate Takashi's movements and react accordingly. The fight was fierce and intense, and both combatants were pushed to their limits. But in the end, it was Tsukasa who emerged victorious, his black lightning overwhelming Takashi's lightning-based attacks. As Takashi lay defeated on the ground, Tsukasa looked down at him with a mixture of sadness and regret. "I'm sorry it had to end this way, Takashi. But I had to stop you." Takashi simply smiled up at him. "You did what you had to do, Tsukasa. I'm proud of you." With those final words, Takashi's body went limp, and he passed away. Tsukasa stood there for a moment, his emotions in turmoil. He had defeated his friend and rival, but at what cost? He could only hope that Kobayashi, Fujishi, Reina, and Rikako were looking down on him from the afterlife, proud of what he had accomplished. After the intense battle, Tsukasa and the others believed that Takashi had perished. They mourned his loss and held a funeral service in his honor, praying that he would find peace in the afterlife. Days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, and life went on for the group. They continued on with their ninja duties and missions, but the memory of Takashi lingered in their minds. They couldn't help but wonder if things would have been different if they had been able to save him from the darkness that had consumed him. However, little did they know that Takashi was alive and well, watching from the shadows. He had faked his death, and had been biding his time, waiting for the right moment to strike. He knew that his former friends and allies would be caught off guard, and he planned to use that to his advantage. As Tsukasa and the others left the gravesite, Takashi silently emerged from the shadows, watching them with a sinister smile on his face. He knew that he had them right where he wanted them, and he would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. The scene ends with Takashi walking away, his plans for revenge still burning brightly in his mind. As the sun began to set, Kuretsuchi saw Tsukasa slouching on a bench, his eyes barely open. She approached him, noticing that he looked tired and weak. "Tsukasa-kun, are you okay?" she asked with concern in her voice. Tsukasa looked up at her, his eyes barely open. "I'm fine, just a little tired," he replied weakly. "Let me take care of you then," Kuretsuchi said as she sat down next to him. "Come with me." She gently took his hand and led him to her room, where she let him rest on her bed. Kuretsuchi sat beside him, brushing his hair away from his face. Tsukasa felt safe and comforted, and soon drifted off to sleep. In the middle of the night, Tsukasa stirred and opened his eyes to see Kuretsuchi sitting beside him, watching him sleep. She leaned in and placed a gentle kiss on his cheek before getting up and leaving the room, leaving Tsukasa to fall back asleep with a small smile on his face. The next morning, Tsukasa woke up feeling much better. He thanked Kuretsuchi for letting him stay with her and for taking care of him. She smiled at him and said, "Anytime, Tsukasa-kun. You're always welcome in my room." As they parted ways, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel a bit flustered from the kiss Kuretsuchi gave him. He knew he had feelings for her, but he wasn't sure if she felt the same way. Nonetheless, he was grateful for her kindness and hoped to spend more time with her in the future. As Tsukasa walked through the village, he spotted Tenten and called out to her. She turned around and smiled when she saw him. "Hey, Tsukasa. What's up?" Tenten asked. "Nothing much, just wanted to see if you wanted to hang out for a bit," Tsukasa replied. "Sure, that sounds like fun," Tenten said, as they began walking together. As they walked around the village, they talked about various things, including their respective weapons and jutsu. Meanwhile, the girls, including Sakura, Ino, Karen, Senna, Tamari, Konan, Keita, Kaharu, Taiku, Rin, Fu, Kuretsuchi, and Ayane, watched from a distance, peeking around corners and ducking behind buildings. "I can't believe Tenten is hanging out with Tsukasa like that," Sakura said, her face flushed with jealousy. "I know, right? She knows I have feelings for him," Ino added, crossing her arms. The other girls nodded in agreement, all feeling a pang of jealousy in their hearts. However, they continued to watch as Tsukasa and Tenten talked and laughed together, clearly enjoying each other's company. As the sun began to set, Tsukasa and Tenten said their goodbyes and went their separate ways. The girls breathed a sigh of relief, glad that their crush on Tsukasa hadn't gone too far. "Let's not tell anyone about this," Karen said, speaking for the group. "Agreed," Sakura said, still feeling a little upset. The girls dispersed, each going their separate ways as well, with thoughts of Tsukasa still lingering in their minds. The scene begins with Tsukasa sound asleep, tossing and turning. Suddenly, he jolts awake, panting heavily with sweat pouring down his face. He had just had a terrible nightmare where his deceased loved ones and friends were being killed one by Takashi. Tears stream down his face as he remembers the nightmare, realizing it was all just a dream. Tsukasa takes a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. He looks around and sees all of his friends sound asleep, snoring quietly. He couldn't believe how real the nightmare felt, and he was still shaking from the experience. He sits up in bed and looks out the window, hoping to distract himself. As he stares out into the dark sky, he begins to have flashbacks of Fujishi, Kobayashi, Reina, and Rikako. He remembers the happy times they shared, but then the memories turn dark as he remembers their deaths. He grips the sheets tightly, feeling a surge of pain and sadness. Tsukasa suddenly feels a soft hand on his shoulder, and he turns to see Kuretsuchi looking at him with concern. She tells him it's okay and to talk to her if he needs anything. Tsukasa nods and takes a deep breath, trying to steady his breathing. As he lies back down, he sees his friends still sleeping peacefully, and he hopes that they'll never have to experience the pain he went through in his nightmare. He closes his eyes, hoping to get some rest before the day ahead. As the dust settled from the destruction wrought upon the waterfall village, Takashi stood amidst the ruins with a sinister smirk on his face. The Takikage lay lifeless at his feet, a cruel testament to Takashi's power and his utter lack of mercy. Kane and Nori, the two Akatsuki members who had aided Takashi in his destruction, trembled in fear as they watched their leader revel in his triumph. They knew that they were mere pawns in his game, and that their usefulness to him had come to an end. "Please, Takashi-sama," Kane pleaded, falling to his knees. "Have mercy on us. We did everything you asked of us." Takashi glared down at the pathetic figure of Kane, a look of disgust on his face. "Mercy is a luxury I cannot afford," he spat. "You and Nori are deadweight to me now. If you become a hindrance to my plans again, I will not hesitate to end your lives in the quickest, most painless way possible." Nori cowered behind Kane, his eyes wide with terror. He knew that Takashi was not one to make idle threats, and the thought of facing his wrath again was almost too much to bear. With a final glare at the two Akatsuki members, Takashi turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a devastated village and a trail of destruction in his wake. Tsukasa, Ayane, and Tenten arrived at the destroyed hidden waterfall village, shocked by the sight of the dead bodies littering the ground. They approached the last remaining shinobi, who introduced themselves as Chino, a member of the Chinoik clan like Tsukasa. Chino explained that the village was attacked by someone named Takashi and two other shinobi from the Akatsuki. Tsukasa felt a sense of unease and anger rise within him. He knew that Takashi was a dangerous and unpredictable opponent, and he feared for what could happen if he continued to wreak havoc on the shinobi world. Ayane and Tenten were equally disturbed by the destruction they saw and the senseless loss of life. Chino led them to the village's central plaza, where they found a message left behind by Takashi. It read, "This is only the beginning. I will destroy all of the hidden villages and create a new world order." Tsukasa clenched his fists in anger at the audacity of Takashi's words. Chino then revealed that she had been sent by the Chinoik clan to help them stop Takashi and the Akatsuki. Tsukasa felt a sense of relief knowing that he had another ally in the fight against his former friend and rival. Together, they resolved to stop Takashi's plan and protect the peace of the shinobi world. The scene starts with Ayane, Tsukasa, Tenten, and Chino arriving at the destroyed hidden waterfall village. As they walked through the village, they saw countless dead bodies on the ground. Suddenly, a lone surviving shinobi emerged from the rubble. The shinobi introduced herself as Chino, and she revealed that she was also a member of the Chinoik clan, just like Tsukasa. As they talked, the group heard footsteps approaching, and Takashi appeared with Kane and Nori, the two Akatsuki members working for him. Takashi approached the group and taunted Tsukasa, saying that he was disappointed to see him still alive. Without warning, he went after Tsukasa and Tenten, while Kane and Nori went after Ayane and Chino. Chino quickly revealed her Ketsuryugan and used it to overwhelm Kane, while Ayane struggled against Nori. Remembering Tsukasa's teachings, Ayane copied his combo taijutsu and used it to defeat Nori, knocking him out. Meanwhile, Takashi easily overpowered Tenten, leaving her badly injured. He then turned his attention back to Tsukasa and charged at him with his katana, ready to kill him. Chino tried to block the attack, but she was no match for Takashi, and he pierced her chest with the katana. Tsukasa watched in horror as Chino fell to the ground, dead. Takashi grinned at Tsukasa's despair and threw Chino's lifeless body into a nearby tree. He then turned to Kane and Nori, who had become deadweight, and quickly sliced them into pieces with his katana. Tsukasa activated his Ketsuryugan, notifying Chino that she wasn't the last Chinoik alive. He mourned Chino's death and vowed to avenge her by defeating Takashi. The three remaining shinobi then dashed off to find Takashi, with the weight of their losses heavy on their hearts. As they ran, Tenten struggled to keep up due to her injuries. Ayane and Tsukasa supported her, helping her to keep moving forward despite the pain. They knew that their journey would be a difficult one, but they were determined to see it through to the end. Tsukasa spotted Sakura, Ino, Karen, and Hinata nearby and immediately approached them with Tenten in his arms, who was severely injured. "Sakura, Karen, please help Tenten," Tsukasa said urgently, his eyes full of worry. Without hesitation, Sakura and Karen rushed over to examine Tenten's injuries, while Ino and Hinata stayed back with Tsukasa. Hinata's hair was a bit disheveled, so Tsukasa crouched down and gently fixed it for her. "You always look beautiful, Hinata," he said with a small smile. Hinata blushed a bit at the compliment, but she also felt comforted by Tsukasa's caring nature. She and Tsukasa had developed a sibling-like bond, and she was grateful to have him as a friend. Once Tenten had been tended to, Tsukasa explained the situation with Takashi to the group. "He's a dangerous shinobi, and he's already destroyed the hidden waterfall village. We need to stop him before he causes more harm," Tsukasa said, his expression serious. The girls listened attentively, realizing the gravity of the situation. They knew that they needed to help Tsukasa in any way they could. "We'll do whatever it takes to stop him," Sakura said determinedly. Hinata nodded in agreement. "We're all here for you, Tsukasa. We'll work together to protect our friends and our village," she said, a fierce determination in her voice. Tsukasa smiled at them gratefully, feeling a sense of relief that he wasn't alone in this fight. He knew that with the support of his friends, they could take down Takashi and put an end to his destructive plans. Ayane stood before Takashi, pointing her weapon at him. "You were my friend. Then after you killed Fujishi, I didn't want Tsukasa to get upset. So I'll get my revenge for Fujishi's sake," she said firmly. Takashi smirked. "You think you can beat me alone, Ayane? You're just a weak little girl." He quickly created a clone and disappeared, reappearing behind Ayane and striking her with his sword. The fight between Ayane and Takashi became a furious taijutsu battle, both of them wielding their swords with deadly precision. Tsukasa and the others heard the commotion and rushed to where Ayane had gone. Ayane used her last resort kenjutsu attack, Kumo Ryu Kengiri, on Takashi, breaking her blade in the process. But Takashi was not done yet. He used a medical jutsu called Chakra Scalpel, immobilizing Ayane. Takashi's eyes became bloodshot as he took out his katana. "You'll meet your friend Fujishi in a quick second," he growled, infusing Chidori with his blade and striking Ayane in the chest. Ayane thought about her friends and thanked Tsukasa for being there for her. She saw nothing but darkness as she flashed back to her depressing childhood, the friends she had, and meeting Tsukasa and Fujishi. Her last words were, "Fujishi, I'm sorry I failed you, but at least we can see each other again." Tsukasa arrived where Ayane lay with the others and collapsed on the ground. He was both enraged and devastated at the sight of Ayane's lifeless body. "How could you do this, Takashi?" he yelled, tears streaming down his face. "I'll make you pay for what you've done." The others could only look on in shock and horror as Tsukasa mourned the loss of his friend. Takashi approached Pain, the leader of the Akatsuki, in the dark and eerie hideout where the organization was based. "Leader, I have a proposal," Takashi said, bowing respectfully to Pain. "Speak," Pain replied, his voice monotone and emotionless. "I propose the creation of a new division within the Akatsuki, with me as the leader," Takashi said confidently. Pain raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And what would this new division do?" "We would focus on intelligence gathering and espionage, as well as targeted assassinations of high-value targets. We would operate independently from the other divisions and report directly to you, leader," Takashi explained. Pain considered the proposal for a moment before nodding in agreement. "Very well. You may proceed with the creation of this new division. Choose your members carefully and report any findings directly to me." Takashi bowed deeply. "Thank you, leader. I will not disappoint you." As Takashi turned to leave, Pain spoke once more. "Choose your supporter carefully as well. She must be skilled and trustworthy." Takashi nodded, already having someone in mind. "Yes, leader. I already have the perfect supporter in mind. Her name is Delta, a rogue kunoichi from the hidden sand village. Pain nodded in approval. Very well. You may begin your preparations. Takashi left the hideout, a sense of excitement and power surging through him. He couldn't wait to start his new division and prove himself to the leader of the Akatsuki. As he walked away, the words of the new division's name echoed in his mind: the Phantom Division. Tsukasa met up with Tenten, Hinata, and Hanabi at a local park. The sun was shining and there was a cool breeze blowing. They decided to spend the day together, just hanging out and having fun. Tenten brought some weapons to practice with, and Tsukasa showed them some of his own techniques with his Ketsuryugan. Hinata and Hanabi were fascinated by his abilities, and they asked him to show them some more. Tsukasa happily obliged, demonstrating his skills with weapons and taijutsu. Tenten joined in, showing them some of her own impressive skills with weapons. The four of them spent hours practicing and training, each learning from one another. Afterwards, they decided to grab some food from a nearby restaurant. They talked and laughed over their meal, enjoying each other's company. Tsukasa was grateful for their friendship and felt happy to have such kind and supportive friends. As the sun began to set, they said their goodbyes and parted ways. Tsukasa walked home, feeling content and happy after spending such a fun and enjoyable day with his friends. As Tsukasa was walking around Konoha, he noticed Shizune struggling to carry a large box. "Do you need help with that?" he asked, approaching her. Shizune was grateful for Tsukasa's offer and handed the box over to him. "Thank you so much, Tsukasa. Lady Tsunade will be pleased that this arrived on time," she said. Tsukasa smiled and nodded. "No problem. Happy to help," he replied. As they arrived at Lady Tsunade's office, Tsukasa handed over the box to Shizune, who then brought it inside. Tsunade noticed Tsukasa and called him over. "Tsukasa, good to see you," she said, patting him on the head. "You're always willing to lend a helping hand, just like your father." Tsukasa smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest from her words. "Thank you, Lady Tsunade. It means a lot coming from you." Shizune also gave Tsukasa a pat on the head and thanked him for his assistance. Tsukasa felt grateful for their appreciation. After a short conversation with Tsunade and Shizune, they could see that Tsukasa was still dealing with the aftermath of his loss. They gave him some advice on how to cope with his feelings and told him that he was not alone. Tsunade hugged Tsukasa and Shizune followed suit, both showing their support for him. Tsukasa felt a sense of comfort from their embrace and knew that he could always turn to them for help. As he left Lady Tsunade's office, he felt grateful for the two women who had shown him kindness and understanding. As Takashi and the Phantom Division received their new mission from Pain, they swiftly moved to carry it out. They knew the traitors, Ken and Lucas, needed to be eliminated for the sake of the organization. They located the two men quickly and engaged them in battle. The Phantom Division fought Ken and Lucas with all their might. They were quick and efficient in their movements, their skills honed from their years of training. Ken and Lucas were no match for them, and they soon found themselves being tied up and unable to move. Takashi approached them with a calm and collected demeanor, his crystal release Kekai Geke already active. He knew that this would be the end for Ken and Lucas, and he would not let them get away with their treachery. Without a moment's hesitation, Takashi struck them with his Kekai Geke. The two traitors were instantly immobilized, their bodies encased in a crystalline structure that left them unable to move or even breathe. Takashi's attack had ended their lives quickly and efficiently. The Phantom Division moved out of the way, leaving Takashi to complete his task. With a swift motion, he shattered the crystalline structure, and Ken and Lucas were no more. The mission had been carried out, and Pain's orders had been fulfilled. Takashi turned to his team, nodding his approval at their performance. He knew that they had all played a crucial role in completing the mission, and he was proud of them. He gave the signal to move out, and they vanished into the shadows, ready for their next task. The scene opens with Jiraiya standing in front of the 6 paths of Pain, preparing for battle. Pain speaks, his voice echoing through the battlefield. "Pain, Jiraiya, you are a powerful ninja. But you are no match for the 6 paths of pain. Jiraiya, we'll see about that. Jiraiya charges forward, launching a flurry of attacks at the 6 paths of pain. But Pain easily deflects each blow, moving with lightning-fast speed. Jiraiya realizes that he is in trouble and tries to retreat, but the 6 paths of pain move even faster, surrounding him on all sides. Jiraiya, this isn't good. I need to take them out one at a time. Jiraiya begins to fight back with all his might, using his most powerful jutsu against the 6 paths of pain. But they keep coming, relentless and unyielding. Finally, Jiraiya is overwhelmed and falls to the ground, exhausted and defeated. Pain, it is over. You fought bravely, but in the end, you were no match for us. As the 6 paths of pain turn to leave, Jiraiya uses the last of his strength to write a message in code on a scrap of paper. He entrusts it to one of the sage toads, instructing it to deliver the message to Tsunade and the others. Jiraiya, take this to the Hidden Leaf Village. They need to know about the leader of the Akatsuki. The sage toads quickly make their retreat, leaving the battlefield and heading back to the Hidden Leaf Village with Jiraiya's message. The atmosphere in the Hokage's office was tense as the sage toads delivered the news of Jiraiya's death to Tsunade, Kakashi, Tsukasa, Naruto, Sasuke, Sai, and Sakura. Tsunade's eyes welled up with tears as she tried to process the loss of her dear friend. Kakashi stood silently, his face showing the pain he felt inside. Tsukasa's face was also solemn, but he remained composed. Naruto, on the other hand, was visibly upset. His fists clenched tightly as he struggled to hold back his tears. Why did he have to die like that? Naruto asked, his voice trembling with emotion. Why couldn't I have been there to save him? Tsukasa placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, trying to calm him down. Naruto, Jiraiya was a great shinobi. He knew the risks of his mission and he chose to go anyway. We should honor his sacrifice. Naruto's eyes were filled with tears, but he nodded silently, understanding what Tsukasa was saying. The memory of Jiraiya's teachings and his time with him flooded Naruto's mind, and he couldn't hold back the tears any longer. Tsunade spoke up. We have to focus on the mission Jiraiya gave his life for. We need to find out who the leader of the Akatsuki is and put a stop to their plans. We owe it to Jiraiya. Kakashi nodded in agreement. Yes. We can't let Jiraiya's sacrifice be in vain. We need to act quickly and decisively. The group exchanged a solemn nod, and they left the office, each lost in their own thoughts and emotions. The memory of Jiraiya would linger with them for a long time to come. After receiving the news about Jiraiya's death, Tsunade, Kakashi, Tsukasa, Naruto, Sasuke, Sai, and Sakura decided to make a plan to take down Pain and the Akatsuki. Tsukasa suggested that they investigate the origins of Pain and the Akatsuki, and see if they could find any weaknesses. They split up to gather information and prepare for the upcoming battle. Tsukasa went to his family's old home in the abandoned village, hoping to find some clues about his clan's past and any connections they might have had to the Akatsuki. There, he discovered a hidden underground laboratory that his ancestors had used for research on their Kekkei Genkai. While searching through the laboratory, Tsukasa found a secret room with an ancient scroll that contained a forbidden jutsu. He hesitated for a moment before deciding to take the scroll with him, hoping that he could use its power to help his friends in the battle against Pain. Meanwhile, Naruto, with the help of his Sage Mode, discovered Pain's location and gathered his allies to confront him. They engaged in a brutal battle with the 6 paths of Pain, during which Tsukasa used the forbidden jutsu from the scroll to unleash a powerful attack that severely weakened Pain's defenses. In the end, Naruto and the others were able to defeat Pain, and Tsukasa's forbidden jutsu proved to be a crucial factor in their victory. However, the battle had taken a toll on everyone, and they mourned the loss of Jiraiya and the other casualties of the war. After the battle, Tsukasa decided to stay in the Hidden Leaf Village and use his knowledge to help his friends and protect the village. He was welcomed as a hero by the people and became an important figure in the rebuilding process after the war. As for the Akatsuki, their plan was thwarted, and their remaining members went into hiding. However, Tsukasa suspected that they would be back, and he continued to train and prepare for the next inevitable battle. Takashi paced back and forth in his hideout, fuming with anger. He had just received word that Pain had been defeated by Tsukasa and his friends. The news made him see red, and he knew what he had to do. "Phantom Division, listen up," Takashi barked, addressing his loyal followers. "We have just received word that our leader, Pain, has been defeated by the Hidden Leaf and their allies. This is unacceptable. We will not rest until we have destroyed them all." The members of the Phantom Division nodded in agreement, ready to carry out their leader's orders. "Takashi-sama, I will support you no matter what," Delta said, stepping forward and placing a hand on his shoulder. "I love you, and I believe in your cause." Takashi turned to her, a small smile forming on his face. "Thank you, Delta. Your support means everything to me." The two shared a brief moment of intimacy before Takashi resumed his furious pacing. "Phantom Division, prepare for battle. We will show the Hidden Leaf and their allies what it means to cross the Akatsuki." The members of the Phantom Division cheered, their hearts filled with a burning desire for revenge. They readied their weapons and began to make their way towards the Hidden Leaf village, ready to unleash their wrath upon their enemies. "Tsunade. Team Samui has brought us important intel from the Hidden Cloud Village. The Raikage has requested our assistance in dealing with a dangerous organization called the Akatsuki, specifically a group known as the Phantom Division." "Tsukasa, the Phantom Division? I've never heard of them before." "Sakura. Neither have I, but it sounds like they could be a serious threat." "Tsunade. That's why I'm splitting you all into groups of 3. You will work together to gather more information on the Phantom Division and report back to us. Here are your assignments." Tsunade hands out slips of paper to each team, and they quickly form their groups. "Naruto, I'm with Hinata and Sai? Alright, let's go kick some Akatsuki butt." "Sasuke, I'll be with Karen and Fu. We'll handle this mission efficiently." "Conan, I'm with Taiku and Rin. Let's make sure we gather all the information we can." "Tsukasa, I'm with Ino and Tenten. We'll do our best to uncover any leads on the Phantom Division." "Tsunade, remember, this is a dangerous mission. Be careful out there and report back as soon as possible." Dismissed. As Tsukasa, Ino, and Tenten were scouring the area for any leads on the Phantom Division, they suddenly heard the sound of battle in the distance. Naruto, Hinata, and Sai were tracking the Phantom Division from a distance, while Conan, Rin, and Taiku were using their jutsu to try and detect them, but nothing seemed to be working. All of a sudden, 3 Phantom Division members appeared in front of Sasuke, Karen, and Fu. The 3 of them prepared to strike, but Karen and Fu managed to fend them off with their taijutsu. Sasuke then stepped in and used his Chidori to defeat the 3 Phantom Division members. However, as Sasuke was about to question them about the whereabouts of the Phantom Division, the curse mark on his neck suddenly began to form, causing him immense pain. The 3 members, realizing they were defeated, used the last of their strength to tell Sasuke about a secret hideout of the Phantom Division before succumbing to their wounds. As Takashi and Delta continued their rampage through the Hidden Sound Village, Tsukasa, Tenten, and Ino arrived at the scene. They quickly spotted the 2 figures and the devastation they were causing. Tsukasa activated his Ketsuryugan and surveyed the area for any signs of the Phantom Division. Suddenly, they heard a scream coming from one of the nearby buildings. They rushed over to the source of the noise and found Tayuya, a former member of Orochimaru's Sound 4, being held captive by 2 members of the Phantom Division. The 2 members were about to deliver the final blow when Tsukasa intervened, blocking the attack with his own blade. "Tayuya, are you okay?" Tsukasa asked as he helped her to her feet. Tayuya blushed, grateful for the assistance. "Yeah, thanks to you." Takashi and Delta turned their attention to the newcomers and charged at them, their eyes filled with fury. The 2 sides clashed in a fierce battle. Takashi's crystalline jutsu proved to be a formidable opponent, but Tsukasa's Ketsuryugan allowed him to see through the Phantom Division leader's attacks. In the midst of the chaos, Takashi managed to get past Tsukasa and headed straight towards Tayuya. Tsukasa quickly reacted and intercepted the attack, but not before getting slashed in the cheek. "Tayuya, go! We'll handle this!" Tenten yelled as she and Ino joined the fight. Tayuya hesitated for a moment, watching the battle unfold, but ultimately decided to make a run for it. Tsukasa continued to fight fiercely, determined to protect his friends and put a stop to the Phantom Division's reign of terror. The battle raged on, with Takashi unleashing his devastating red lightning release. Tsukasa and his friends fought fiercely, utilizing all of their skills and abilities to counter Takashi's attacks. As the battle continued, Laika continued to wreak havoc, taking on multiple opponents at once and emerging victorious each time. The allied shinobi were starting to become overwhelmed, and it seemed as if Takashi and his forces might emerge victorious. Just when all hope seemed lost, a figure appeared on the battlefield, a man with long, silver hair and a single Sharingan eye. It was Kakashi Hatake, the legendary ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village. Kakashi had been tracking the Phantom Division's movements and had arrived just in time to turn the tide of the battle. With his expertise in the Sharingan and lightning-style jutsu, Kakashi was able to hold his own against Takashi and even gain the upper hand. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and his friends had regrouped and were fighting in sync, utilizing their unique abilities to create powerful combinations. Ino used her mind control jutsu to manipulate the movements of the Phantom Division's members, while Tenten launched a barrage of weapons at them from afar. Tsukasa continued to use his black lightning and Ketsuryugan together, striking with deadly precision. As the battle continued, the allied shinobi were starting to gain the upper hand. The Phantom Division's members were starting to fall one by one, and Takashi was becoming increasingly desperate. Finally, with a fierce roar, Takashi unleashed a massive blast of red lightning release, causing the ground to shake and sending shockwaves throughout the battlefield. But Tsukasa stood firm, determined to protect his friends and defeat Takashi once and for all. With a final surge of strength, Tsukasa unleashed his most powerful jutsu yet, a combination of black lightning and Ketsuryugan that was strong enough to counter Takashi's red lightning release. The two jutsu clashed, sending sparks flying in every direction. When the smoke cleared, Takashi was lying on the ground, defeated. Delta had fled the battlefield, and the other Phantom Division members had either been defeated or retreated. Tsukasa and his friends stood victorious, exhausted but proud of their accomplishments. As they made their way back to the Hidden Leaf Village, they knew that they had saved countless lives and proven themselves as true heroes of the shinobi world. As the dust settled on the battlefield, the allied shinobi from the different villages looked around in confusion. They had just defeated Takashi and Laika, or so they thought. But as they looked closer, they realized that the two Akatsuki outers had disappeared without a trace. Tsukasa gritted his teeth in frustration. "Damn it, they got away." Sakura walked over to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, Tsukasa. We'll catch them next time." Tsukasa nodded, but he couldn't shake off the feeling of defeat. He had been so close to taking down Takashi and ending the Phantom Division once and for all. But now, they had slipped through their fingers. Meanwhile, Takashi and Laika were grinning as they watched the chaos from afar. "They fell for it," Takashi said. "They really thought those were our real bodies." Laika chuckled. "We're too good for them." Takashi nodded. "We'll lie low for a while and then strike when they least expect it." Laika smiled. "Sounds like a plan." And with that, they disappeared into the shadows, ready to plan their next move. As Takashi, Delta, and Laika stood at the edge of the pit, Hidan struggled to escape, but his efforts were futile. Laika grinned wickedly as she raised her hand and began to draw out Hidan's life force. Hidan screamed in agony as he felt his life slipping away, and his body began to wither and age rapidly. Takashi watched with a satisfied smile as Hidan's body collapsed into a heap on the ground. "Well done, Laika," he said, his voice filled with admiration. You have truly proven your worth to the Phantom Division." Delta nodded in agreement, her eyes shining with excitement. "We're going to take down the Hidden Leaf and all of their allies," she said, her voice filled with malice. "No one can stop us now." Laika grinned eagerly, her eyes glowing with a fierce intensity. "I'm ready for anything," she said, her voice ringing with confidence. "Let's show them what we're made of." With those words, the three of them turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of destruction and chaos. The Phantom Division was stronger than ever, and nothing would stand in their way. As Takashi, Delta, and Laika found themselves surrounded by Tsukasa and his friends, the tension in the air was palpable. The two sides eyed each other warily, ready for anything. Without warning, Tsukasa launched himself at Takashi, and the two engaged in an intense taijutsu fight. Tsukasa was quick and agile, but Takashi's strength and speed were unmatched. Meanwhile, Laika began to pick off some of Tsukasa's friends, leaving only a handful left standing. Delta saw an opportunity to strike and lunged at Naruto, aiming to end his life. But Rin got in the way, taking the fatal blow instead. Taiku was furious at the sight of her fallen comrade and attacked Delta with all her might. But in her rage, she was reckless and was ultimately killed by Delta as well. Tsukasa watched in horror as his friends, Rin and Taiku, were killed before his eyes. His grief and anger surged within him, and he closed his eyes to focus. He then tapped into his Snake Sage powers and unleashed his Ketsuryugan Jutsu, exploding human technique on Laika and Delta. The two imploded in a violent explosion, and the ground shook beneath their feet. Tsukasa was left standing amidst the rubble, his chakra spent and his body exhausted. He couldn't help but feel a profound sadness for his fallen friends, but he knew that he had done what he had to do to protect them and honor their memory. The scene was a somber one, filled with intense emotion and raw power. The loss of life was tragic, but Tsukasa's heroism was a beacon of light in the darkness. Takashi was caught off guard by the sudden chakra burst that emanated from Tsukasa. He immediately stopped his attack and backed away, trying to assess the situation. "What the hell was that?" Takashi muttered under his breath, his eyes focused on Tsukasa. Tsukasa stood there, panting heavily, his body covered in sweat. His eyes were closed, and he was clearly in a state of exhaustion. "Tsukasa, are you alright?" Tenten asked, moving closer to him. Tsukasa slowly opened his eyes, looking at his friends. "I'm fine," he said weakly. "I just used a powerful jutsu that drained most of my chakra." Takashi's eyes narrowed. "What kind of jutsu was that?" "It's a Ketsuryugan jutsu," Tsukasa replied, still catching his breath. "I used the exploding human technique to defeat Laika and Delta." Takashi gritted his teeth, his fists clenched. "You killed them," he said through gritted teeth. "You'll pay for that, Tsukasa." Tsukasa stood his ground, ready to face Takashi once again. "I'm ready for you," he said, his voice filled with determination. The two opponents stared at each other, a sense of tension building between them. The battle was far from over, and the outcome was still uncertain. As Takashi was about to strike Tenten with his katana, Tsukasa's chakra burst startled him, causing him to hesitate for a moment. This gave Tsukasa the opportunity to quickly intervene and use the shadow of the dancing leaf to kick Takashi into the air. Tsukasa then followed up with another taijutsu attack, Konoha Shofu, Leaf Rising Wind, sending Takashi flying into a nearby tree. Takashi tried to get back up, but he was visibly shaken from the attack. He looked up at Tsukasa, his eyes filled with anger and frustration. "You're just a mere human," Takashi spat. "How dare you try to stand in my way?" Tsukasa remained calm, his eyes focused on Takashi. "I may be human, but I'm not weak," he replied. "And I won't let you hurt my friends." Takashi growled and charged at Tsukasa with his katana, but Tsukasa was ready for him. He dodged Takashi's attack with ease and landed a solid punch to his stomach. Takashi stumbled back, but quickly regained his composure and swung his katana again. The two continued their intense taijutsu battle, exchanging blows and dodging attacks. Tsukasa's movements were fluid and precise, while Takashi's were more wild and aggressive. As they fought, Tsukasa noticed that Takashi's movements were becoming slower and more predictable. It was clear that Takashi was starting to tire. Tsukasa saw an opportunity and struck Takashi with a series of powerful kicks, sending him flying back into a nearby tree. Takashi slumped to the ground, unconscious. Tsukasa walked over to Takashi and retrieved his katana. He looked down at the fallen Akatsuki member, his expression softening slightly. "You may have been strong, but you were using your strength for the wrong reasons," Tsukasa said quietly. "I hope you find peace in the next life." With that, Tsukasa turned and walked back to his friends, ready to continue their journey. As Tsukasa turned around, he realized that the Takashi he had just defeated was nothing but a mere clone. He looked up to see the real Takashi standing by the tree, smirking at him. Tsukasa gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He knew that this was it, the final battle between him and Takashi. Without uttering a single word, they both dashed towards the Valley of the End, leaving behind the rest of their friends. As they ran, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. He was both scared and excited, nervous and determined. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the chance to finally put an end to Takashi's evil plans. When they arrived at the Valley of the End, they both stopped and faced each other, their eyes locked in a fierce stare. Tsukasa knew that this would be the toughest fight of his life, but he was ready. "Let's finish this," Takashi said, his voice cold and calculating. Tsukasa simply nodded, his eyes blazing with determination. With that, they both charged at each other, ready to fight until the bitter end. The fight between Takashi and Tsukasa was intense, with both of them using all their abilities to overpower the other. They fought as children, as teens, and as enemies, with every strike and counterattack carrying the weight of their complicated history. Takashi was driven by his anger, fueled by the memory of all those he had lost because of his own selfishness. He swung his sword with ferocity, determined to end Tsukasa and prove his own superiority. But Tsukasa was equally determined, fueled by a sense of justice and a desire to protect those he loved. Their final clash was devastating, with lightning and crystal shattering the very earth around them. But in the end, it was Tsukasa who emerged victorious. He landed the final blow on Takashi, sending him crashing to the ground. As Takashi lay dying, Tsukasa stood over him, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "I'm sorry, my friend," he said. "But for the sake of everyone you've hurt, I have to end this." And with those words, Tsukasa unleashed the full power of his Ketsuryugan, engulfing Takashi in a genjutsu that would bring an end to his life. As Takashi breathed his last, the Akatsuki and Phantom Division were no more, their legacy forever tied to the tragedy of their actions. Tsukasa stood there for a moment, looking down at the fallen figure of his former friend. Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and turned to leave. It was time to move on, to start the next chapter of his life and honor the memory of those he had lost. After the intense battle with Takashi, Tsukasa felt his arm grow numb, and he stumbled to the ground. Tenten and the others rushed to his aid, catching him before he hit the ground. They helped him to the nearest medical facility in the Hidden Leaf Village, where he was examined by the best medical ninja. The examination revealed that Tsukasa had suffered severe chakra depletion from the intense battle, and he needed immediate medical attention. The medical ninja rushed to stabilize him and began the treatment, while Tenten and the others waited anxiously outside. After several hours of waiting, the medical ninja emerged from the room, signaling that Tsukasa was stabilized but needed to be monitored closely for the next few days. Tenten and the others breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that their friend was going to be okay. As they made their way back to their respective homes, Tenten and the others discussed the events of the battle and how they could have lost their lives. They agreed that they needed to train harder and become stronger to protect their village and loved ones. Tsukasa was discharged from the hospital a few days later and was greeted by his friends, who were happy to see him back on his feet. They spent the next few weeks recovering and training, determined to become stronger and better prepared for whatever challenges awaited them in the future. The screen fades in to show a bustling street in the Hidden Leaf Village. People are going about their day, merchants are selling their goods, and ninja are hurrying off to missions. Suddenly, the camera focuses on a figure walking down the street. It's Tsukasa, but he looks different now. His hair is shorter and styled in a spiky fashion, and he's wearing a red and black outfit that looks like it could have come from the Chinook clan. He walks with purpose, his eyes scanning the surroundings as if he's looking for something or someone. As he walks, people look at him with curiosity and whispers can be heard in the background. Who is that? He looks like a ninja from the Chinook clan. Why is he wearing that outfit? The camera then cuts to Tsukasa's face, which is now more serious and determined than before. He looks like he's been through a lot in the past 2 years. As he continues walking down the street, he suddenly stops in front of a building. It's the hospital, and he looks up at it with a mix of emotions. Memories of the past flood back into his mind. He takes a deep breath and then walks into the building, disappearing from view as the scene ends. The camera fades in to show Tsukasa walking down the streets of the Hidden Leaf Village. His hair was styled in a sleek, short cut, and he wore an outfit that resembled that of a Chinook clan member. He looked around, taking in the sights and sounds of the bustling village, a small smile playing on his lips. As he turned a corner, he bumped into Tenten, who was carrying a stack of boxes. The boxes flew out of her arms and scattered all over the ground. "Oh, sorry Tenten." Tsukasa quickly apologized as he bent down to help her pick up the boxes. "It's okay, Tsukasa," Tenten replied, a small blush creeping up on her cheeks as their hands touched. After they finished picking up the boxes, they stood up and looked at each other, both feeling a bit awkward. "So, what are you up to?" Tsukasa asked, trying to break the tension. "I'm just delivering some supplies to the academy," Tenten answered, adjusting the strap of her bag. "Ah, I see. Well, good luck with that," Tsukasa said, a playful grin spreading across his face. Tenten rolled her eyes and playfully nudged him. "Thanks. What about you? What are you up to?" "Nothing much, just exploring the village," Tsukasa replied, shrugging his shoulders. They stood there for a moment, not sure what to say next, when suddenly a stray cat ran up to them, meowing loudly. Tenten knelt down to pet the cat, while Tsukasa watched with a smile. As she petted the cat, it suddenly jumped into her arms, causing her to stumble backward. Tsukasa quickly caught her, wrapping his arms around her to steady her. They both blushed, realizing how close they were. "Thanks for catching me," Tenten said, looking up at him. "No problem," Tsukasa replied, his eyes meeting hers. They both stood there for a moment, caught in the moment, before Tenten cleared her throat and pulled away. "I better get going. I have to deliver these supplies," she said, picking up her bags. "Yeah, of course. See you later," Tsukasa replied, watching as she walked away. As he turned to continue exploring the village, he couldn't help but think about Tenten and how he felt about her. He knew he had to tell her, but he wasn't sure how. The camera fades out as Tsukasa continues to walk down the bustling streets, lost in his thoughts. It was a sunny day in the Hidden Leaf Village, and Tsukasa was walking through the village square when he saw Hinata and Hanabi. They waved at him and called out his name, and Tsukasa smiled, happy to see them. "Hey, Tsukasa," Hinata called out. "What are you up to today?" "I don't have anything planned," Tsukasa replied. "What about you two?" "We were just about to start our training session," Hanabi said. "Do you want to join us?" Tsukasa nodded eagerly. "I'd love to." Hinata and Hanabi led Tsukasa to a quiet training ground on the outskirts of the village, where they began to warm up. Tsukasa was impressed by their skills and determination, and he couldn't help but feel grateful to have such wonderful friends. As they trained, Hinata and Hanabi offered Tsukasa advice and encouragement. They treated him like he was their brother, and Tsukasa felt grateful for their kindness. He had always felt a special connection to the Hyuga clan, and he was happy to embrace his own clan's customs as well. After a few hours of training, Tsukasa was exhausted but happy. Hinata and Hanabi said their goodbyes, and Tsukasa promised to train with them again soon. He felt lucky to have such good friends in his life, and he knew that he would always cherish their bond. Tsukasa walked through the cemetery, the soft sound of his footsteps muffled by the grass. He paused in front of the first grave, taking a deep breath before kneeling down. It was Kobayashi's grave. "Hey, Kobayashi. It's been a while, huh? Sorry for not coming sooner, but I've been busy with training and all that. Things have been tough without you, man. I miss our talks and training sessions. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and I'm trying to live up to your expectations." He paused for a moment, his hand resting on the headstone. "And Rin, Taiku, Ayane, Fujishi, Chino, Tayuya, and Neji. You guys are all here, huh? I'm sorry for not coming to visit earlier. I've been training hard to get stronger, so I can protect the village and my friends. But I want you to know that I haven't forgotten about any of you. I remember everything we did together and all the good times we had. And I'll keep fighting for all of you, too." Tsukasa stood up and took a step back, his eyes lingering on the graves for a moment longer before he turned and walked away. Tsukasa spotted Sakura, Ino, and Fu walking towards him, and he greeted them with a smile. "Hey, Sakura, Ino, Fu. Long time no see," he said. "Tsukasa, how have you been?" Sakura asked, smiling back at him. "I've been good, thanks for asking. What brings you all here?" Tsukasa asked. "We were just about to grab some lunch. Do you want to come with us?" Ino suggested. "Sure, I'd love to," Tsukasa replied. They all headed to a nearby barbecue place, and they chatted and caught up with each other while they ate. Tsukasa was happy to be able to spend some time with his old friends and enjoy a nice meal together. Tsukasa was strolling through the marketplace when he spotted Tamari from the corner of his eye. He quickly made his way towards her and called out her name. Tamari turned around to see Tsukasa running towards her, and before she could react, Tsukasa took her hand and held it tightly. "Tsukasa-kun, what are you doing?" Tamari asked, her face turning red. "I just wanted to surprise you," Tsukasa said with a smile. "It's been a while since we've seen each other, hasn't it?" Tamari nodded, still blushing. "Yes, it has. How have you been?" "I've been doing well," Tsukasa replied. "Just keeping busy with training and missions. How about you?" "I've been busy too," Tamari said, smiling. "I have a lot of work to do in Suna, but I try to visit Konoha whenever I can." Tsukasa smiled back at her. "Well, I'm glad we got to see each other today. Would you like to grab something to eat?" Tamari nodded, and they walked together to a nearby restaurant. As they sat down to order their food, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel grateful for the chance to spend time with his old friend. Tsukasa was strolling through the streets of Konoha when he noticed Keita and Kaharu walking together. He smiled and quickly made his way over to them. "Hey, Keita, Kaharu. Long time no see," he said as he wrapped his arms around them. Keita and Kaharu blushed, surprised by Tsukasa's sudden embrace. "Tsukasa-kun, what are you doing?" Keita asked, trying to push him away playfully. Tsukasa just chuckled and kept his arms around them. "Just wanted to say hi and catch up a bit," he said, grinning. Kaharu cleared her throat, trying to hide her own blush. "Well, we're not doing anything important right now. We could hang out for a bit," she suggested, hoping to spend more time with Tsukasa. Tsukasa smiled at them both. "That sounds great," he said, and they began to walk and talk. Keita and Kaharu kept stealing glances at him, feeling a bit shy and awkward, but Tsukasa just laughed and joked with them, making them feel more comfortable. As they chatted and walked, Tsukasa couldn't help but notice how much Keita and Kaharu had grown over the past few years. They were both strong kunoichi now, and he was proud to call them his friends. Tsukasa was caught off guard when Senna suddenly leaned in and planted a quick kiss on his cheek. He chuckled and rubbed the back of his head, feeling a bit flustered by the unexpected gesture. Sakura, Tenten, Ino, Tamari, Keita, Kaharu, Konan, Karen, Kuratsuchi, and Fu all noticed and couldn't help but feel a little jealous. They each tried to sneak a kiss from Tsukasa themselves, but he was quick to dodge and playfully tease them. "Hey now, one at a time." Tsukasa laughed as he evaded their attempts. "I don't think I can handle all of you at once." The girls pouted and crossed their arms, but couldn't help but laugh at Tsukasa's playful reaction. They all knew how much he meant to them, and it was clear that they all meant a lot to him too. As Tsukasa and his friends continue to playfully chase each other around, they eventually make their way to the cemetery. Tsukasa and Hinata pause at their deceased friends' graves and offer a moment of silence and respect. After a few moments, Hinata turns to Tsukasa with a soft smile. "I'm glad you're here with me, Tsukasa-kun." Tsukasa smiles back at her, his eyes filled with warmth. "Me too, Hinata-chan. It's important to remember our friends and the memories we shared with them." As they start to make their way to Takashi's grave, Tsukasa's friends continue to follow closely behind, still vying for his attention. Suddenly, Tsukasa stops in his tracks, causing the others to bump into him. He turns around to face them, a serious expression on his face. "Guys, I know you all have feelings for me, but I need you to understand that I see you all as my close friends and nothing more," he says, his voice firm but gentle. The girls all look a bit crestfallen, but they nod in understanding. "However, that doesn't mean we can't continue to have fun and make new memories together," Tsukasa adds, flashing them a bright smile. The group continues on to Takashi's grave, where they pay their respects and share stories of their fallen comrade. Despite the bittersweet memories, they all leave feeling a sense of closeness and connection to each other. Tsukasa sat quietly under the shade of a tree, watching his friends train in the distance. His thoughts drifted to Tenten, the girl who had caught his eye ever since they were young. He couldn't help but smile as he remembered the times they had spent together, training and talking about their dreams. But at the same time, he couldn't deny the feelings he had for Senna, the girl who had stolen a kiss from him. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. It was a confusing time for him, trying to sort out his own feelings while also navigating the attention of the other girls. As he sat there lost in thought, he didn't notice that Ino had approached him until she spoke up. "Hey there, Tsukasa. What's on your mind?" He looked up at her and smiled faintly. "Just thinking about stuff, I guess." Ino raised an eyebrow. "Stuff? Like what?" Tsukasa hesitated for a moment before deciding to confide in her. "Well, it's about Tenten and Senna, Deek and the other girls. I don't know how I feel about all of this attention." Ino nodded understandingly. "I see. It's tough when you don't know how you feel about someone, let alone multiple people. But don't worry, we're all here to support you no matter what." Tsukasa felt a sense of relief wash over him as Ino spoke those words. He knew that he could count on his friends to be there for him, no matter how confusing his emotions may be. "Thanks, Ino. That means a lot to me." She gave him a reassuring smile before heading back to the others, leaving Tsukasa alone with his thoughts once more. Tsukasa was walking with Tenten in the park, enjoying the beautiful scenery around them. They were laughing and chatting, enjoying each other's company. Suddenly, they noticed their friends approaching them. "Tenten! Tsukasa!" Ino shouted, running towards them with a big smile on her face. "What are you guys up to?" "Just on a date, Ino," Tenten replied, smiling at Tsukasa. "Ooh, a date?" Senna said, grinning. "That's so cute." Tsukasa blushed a little at the attention, but he was happy to see his friends. "Hey, guys," he said, waving. "What's up?" "We were just hanging out," Keita said. "But we saw you too and we had to come say hi." "Well, why don't you guys join us?" Tenten offered. "We were just going to grab some ice cream." The group happily agreed, and they all walked to the nearby ice cream parlor. Tsukasa found himself enjoying the company of his friends and the attention from Tenten and Senna. Maybe, he thought, he didn't have to choose between them after all. As Tsukasa walked with Tenten through the streets of Konoha, he couldn't help but feel nervous. This was their first official date, and he wanted everything to go smoothly. Tenten, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. She walked with a confident stride, occasionally glancing over at Tsukasa and flashing him a bright smile. As they passed by a group of their friends, Tsukasa could feel their eyes on him and Tenten. Senna looked a little disappointed, but didn't say anything. Keita and Kaharu giggled and waved at the couple, while Hinata and Hanabi watched with fond amusement. Tsukasa couldn't help but feel a little self-conscious under their scrutiny. He had a crush on Tenten, but he also knew that Senna had feelings for him as well. He didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. As they arrived at the restaurant, Tsukasa pulled out a chair for Tenten and took a seat across from her. They ordered their food and began to chat, their conversation easy and relaxed. But as the meal progressed, Tsukasa began to notice that Tenten seemed a little distracted. She kept glancing over his shoulder, as if looking for someone. "Is something wrong?" he asked, following her gaze. Tenten hesitated for a moment before admitting, "I invited some of our friends to come join us." "I hope you don't mind." Tsukasa felt a pang of disappointment. He had been hoping for some alone time with Tenten, but he didn't want to be rude. "No, of course not. It'll be great to see everyone." A few minutes later, Ino, Sakura, Tamari, and Karen arrived, taking seats around the table. Tsukasa greeted them warmly, but he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed that his date had been interrupted. As they all chatted and caught up, Tsukasa noticed that Senna had joined them as well. She was sitting next to him, her hand resting on his arm. Tsukasa felt a surge of guilt. He knew he had feelings for Tenten, but he didn't want to hurt Senna either. He tried to focus on the conversation, but his mind was elsewhere. As the meal came to an end and they all said their goodbyes, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel a little confused. He liked Tenten, but he didn't know if she felt the same way. And he didn't know how to handle Sina's feelings either. He walked home alone, lost in thought. The academy students eagerly gathered around as Tsukasa and Naruto stepped into the sparring ring. The girls were giggling and whispering to each other, while the boys were cheering and shouting words of encouragement. Tsukasa and Naruto bowed to each other before assuming their stances. Tsukasa's Chinook clan outfit was eye-catching and his unique taijutsu style piqued the interest of the students. Naruto charged first, throwing a flurry of punches and kicks, but Tsukasa expertly dodged them with ease, his movements smooth and fluid. The students watched in awe as the two ninjas clashed, their taijutsu skills on full display. Tsukasa showed off his Chinook clan's taijutsu, incorporating powerful strikes and kicks with precise and fluid movements. Naruto countered with his own unique style, filled with unpredictable movements and powerful bursts of chakra. The sparring match went on for a while, with the students cheering on the two ninjas. Finally, after a particularly flashy move by Naruto, the match came to an end. Tsukasa and Naruto bowed to each other once more, both sweating and breathing heavily. The students burst into applause, some of the girls swooning over the two ninjas. Tsukasa and Naruto smiled at each other before turning to the class, ready to answer any questions they had about taijutsu. As the class ended and the students left the room, Tsukasa and Naruto high-fived each other, happy to have shared their skills with the next generation of ninja. Tsukasa slowly opened his eyes, still groggy from his deep sleep. He sat up in bed and rubbed his eyes, trying to shake off the drowsiness. As he sat there, his mind started to wander, and he found himself daydreaming about his future. In his dream, he was the leader of a powerful organization that was responsible for protecting the allied shinobi world from all threats, both external and internal. He could see himself working closely with the Hokage, offering support and guidance whenever it was needed. As he continued to dream, Tsukasa could feel the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He knew that if he wanted to achieve this dream, he would have to work hard and train diligently every day. But he was willing to do whatever it took to make his dream a reality. As the dream started to fade away, Tsukasa was left with a sense of determination and purpose. He knew that he had a long way to go before he could become the leader he wanted to be, but he was excited to start the journey. As he got out of bed and started to get ready for the day, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel grateful for all the experiences he had had so far. From his days as an academy student, to being a genin, and now a jonin, he knew that each step of the way had prepared him for what was to come. With a smile on his face, Tsukasa set out to make the most of the day ahead, determined to continue his journey towards becoming the leader he knew he could be. The scene opens with Lord 6th, Kakashi Hatake, addressing Tsukasa and his team, along with another team of shinobi. "Tsukasa, I'm assigning you and your team to find and bring in Danzo. He's been on the run for too long, and it's time for him to answer for his crimes. He's responsible for the deaths of the Uchiha clan years ago, and we can't let him get away with it any longer." Tsukasa nods, his expression serious. "Understood, Lord 6th. We won't let you down." Kakashi turns to the other team. "As for you, I'm assigning you to take down a group of rogue shinobi from the Hidden Rain village. They've been causing trouble in our borders for too long, and it's time to put an end to it." The other team nods in agreement, and Kakashi dismisses them. Tsukasa and his team leave the room, their minds focused on the task ahead. As they head out to begin their mission, Tsukasa can't help but think about the gravity of their task. Bringing in Danzo won't be easy, but he knows that they have to do it. For the sake of justice and the safety of the shinobi world, they have to succeed. As Lord 6th's orders rang through the village, Tsukasa quickly gathered his team consisting of Sasuke, Tenten, and Senna. They were to track down and arrest Danzo, a task that Tsukasa had mixed feelings about. On one hand, he knew that Danzo was responsible for the deaths of the Uchiha clan and the loss of so many innocent lives. On the other hand, he didn't want to risk his life or that of his teammates on a dangerous mission that may not yield any results. Despite his concerns, Tsukasa steeled himself and led his team towards their objective. Along the way, they encountered several members of Danzo's forces, but they were able to defeat them quickly and move on. As they got closer to their destination, Tsukasa could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that this was the moment of truth, and that they had to apprehend Danzo before he could escape. Finally, they arrived at Danzo's hideout, where they found him surrounded by his loyal followers. Tsukasa and his team stood ready for battle, knowing that they had to be careful not to let their guard down. The fight was intense, with both sides giving it their all. But in the end, Tsukasa and his team emerged victorious, with Danzo in custody. As they made their way back to the village, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. They had accomplished their mission, and justice had been served. Meanwhile, Ino, Keita, Kaharu, Sakura, Naruto, and Kiba were on a separate mission to take down the rogue shinobi from the Hidden Rain village. It was a tough fight, but they were able to work together and emerge victorious as well. The two teams reunited back in the village, exhausted but relieved that their missions were successful. Lord 6th commended them for their hard work, and Tsukasa couldn't help but feel a sense of pride knowing that he had helped make the world a safer place. As Danzo activated his Sharingan on his arms, Tsukasa's anger grew inside him. He knew that this was the man who was responsible for many things, including the destruction of his own clan. He looked at Sasuke, who shared the same anger towards Danzo. Without wasting any time, Tsukasa activated his Ketsuryugan and charged towards Danzo with Sasuke by his side. They both smirked at each other and glared at Danzo, who was taken aback by their sudden burst of speed and power. Tsukasa and Sasuke unleashed a series of attacks, their teamwork impeccable. Danzo tried to defend himself with his Sharingan but failed as Tsukasa and Sasuke's lightning-based attacks overwhelmed him. Tsukasa's black lightning and Sasuke's purple lightning, combined with the Chidori, made it impossible for Danzo to escape. He was cornered, and Tsukasa delivered the final blow with a fast and precise Chidori to the chest. As Danzo fell to the ground, Tsukasa and Sasuke stood there, victorious. They both knew that their fight was far from over, but they had taken a significant step forward in their journey to protect the shinobi world from danger. As Danzo attempted to use his final trump card and self-destruct, Tsukasa, Sasuke, Tenten, and Senna quickly tried to distance themselves from him. Tsukasa picked up Tenten on his shoulder, and Sasuke did the same with Senna. "Come on, we need to get out of here," Tsukasa shouted as they quickly ran away from the exploding Danzo. As they made their way out of the area, they could feel the shockwave and heat from the explosion behind them. But they kept running until they were at a safe distance. After catching their breath, Sasuke spoke up. "Danzo is finally taken care of, but at what cost?" Tenten looked at Tsukasa, who nodded in agreement. "We'll make sure to honor those who have fallen and make sure their sacrifice was not in vain," Tsukasa said firmly. Senna placed her hand on Sasuke's shoulder. "We'll get through this together, Sasuke." As they walked away from the scene, the team knew that this fight would stay with them forever. After completing their respective missions, Tsukasa and Ino returned to the village and headed straight to the Hokage's office to report their findings. Tsukasa knocked on the door and entered, followed by Ino. Kakashi looked up from his paperwork and smiled at the two shinobi. "Ah, Tsukasa, Ino. I was just about to send for you," he said. Tsukasa bowed respectfully. "We have returned from our missions, Hokage-sama. We have some important information to report." Kakashi motioned for them to sit. "Please, tell me what you have found." Tsukasa began to explain the mission to capture Danzo, recounting their fight with him and how they were able to defeat him before he could detonate the explosive tags. Ino then went on to describe their mission to take down the rogue shinobi from the hidden rain village, detailing the battle strategies they used and how they were able to apprehend them. Kakashi listened intently to their reports, nodding and asking questions where necessary. When they had finished, he thanked them for their hard work and dedication. "I am pleased to hear that both missions were successful. You have done well, Tsukasa and Ino. Your efforts are greatly appreciated," Kakashi said with a smile. Tsukasa and Ino both bowed and left the office, feeling proud of their accomplishments and glad that they could serve the village in such an important way. Tsukasa and Ino were walking back to their quarters after their debrief with Lord Sixth. As they strolled down the empty hallway, Tsukasa turned to Ino with a serious look on his face. "Ino, can I ask you something?" he said, his voice hesitant. Ino raised an eyebrow. "Sure, what is it?" Tsukasa hesitated for a moment before blurting out, "Do you like me?" Ino's cheeks turned bright red, and she looked away. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're getting at." Tsukasa scratched his head, realizing that he had probably made things awkward. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, do you like me as a friend? Because I consider you a really good friend." Ino's expression softened, and she let out a sigh of relief. "Oh, that's what you meant. Of course, I consider you a good friend too, Tsukasa." They both chuckled awkwardly, and Tsukasa rubbed the back of his head. "Sorry about that, Ino. I didn't mean to make it sound like I was confessing or anything." Ino playfully punched him in the chest. "You dummy. Don't say things like that without thinking." Tsukasa grinned, feeling relieved that he hadn't made things too awkward between them. "Yeah, I'll try to be more careful with my words next time." They both laughed, the tension between them dissipating as they continued down the hallway. Toneri was busy in his castle on the moon, planning and scheming to obtain the Tenseigan. He had always been obsessed with the power of the Otsutsuki clan and was determined to unlock its full potential. Meanwhile, back in the Hidden Leaf village, Tsukasa was enjoying a warm bowl of Ichiraku ramen with his friends. Tenten was sitting next to him, and he couldn't help but steal glances at her. He had harbored feelings for her since they were both young academy students, but he never had the courage to confess. As they chatted and laughed, Tsukasa felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Ino, giving him a playful punch in the arm. "What's up, Tsukasa? You seem distracted," she teased. Tsukasa blushed and tried to play it cool. "Oh, nothing. Just enjoying the ramen." Ino smirked and nudged him. "Sure. "We all know who you're really looking at," she said, gesturing towards Tenten. Tsukasa's face turned even redder, and he sputtered out a denial. "I don't know what you're talking about." The group laughed and teased Tsukasa, who eventually joined in and laughed at himself. As they finished their meal and said their goodbyes, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel grateful for the amazing friends he had in his life. But as he walked away, his mind couldn't help but wander back to Tenten, and he knew that one day, he would have to finally confess his feelings to her. As 3 rogue shinobi were attacking innocent people in a village, chaos ensued as the villagers tried to defend themselves. Suddenly, a figure appeared and began to take down the rogue shinobi with incredible speed and precision. The villagers cheered as they witnessed the figure defeat the rogue shinobi and save their lives. However, when the figure removed their mask, it was revealed that they were posing as Tsukasa. The real Tsukasa was horrified when he heard the news. He knew that someone was trying to ruin his reputation and make him look like a cold-blooded killer. Tsukasa gathered his friends and explained the situation to them. Determined to clear Tsukasa's name, the group began to investigate and search for clues to find out who was behind the impersonation. They eventually discovered that it was a group of rogue ninjas who had a grudge against Tsukasa. Tsukasa and his friends confronted the rogue ninjas, and a fierce battle ensued. After an intense fight, Tsukasa and his friends emerged victorious, and the rogue ninjas were brought to justice. With his name cleared and his reputation restored, Tsukasa vowed to continue protecting innocent people and to always stay true to his ninja way. As the imposter Tsukasa made his way towards the group of girls, he tried to act suave and charming, but his words and demeanor were completely off. The girls quickly realized that something was wrong and looked at each other, confused. Ino spoke up first. "Wait a minute, something's not right here. This isn't the Tsukasa we know." Tenten added, "Yeah, he's not even close to being as cool as our Tsukasa." The imposter tried to play it off. "Hey now, don't be so quick to judge. Maybe you just haven't seen my true charm yet." But the girls weren't buying it, and they quickly figured out that it was someone else posing as Tsukasa. Meanwhile, the real Tsukasa was walking with the guys and they all noticed the imposter staring at them. Sasuke was the first to react. "Who the hell is that?" Naruto chimed in. "I don't know, but he's definitely not Tsukasa. Let's go check it out." As they got closer, Tsukasa couldn't believe what he was seeing. "That's not me." "Who the hell is that?" They all attacked the imposter, forcing him to undo his transformation jutsu, revealing himself to be Daisuke from the hidden grass rogue shinobi. "What are you doing here, Daisuke?" Tsukasa demanded. Daisuke sneered. "I'm here to ruin your reputation, Tsukasa. By killing innocent people and pretending to be you, I can make everyone turn against you." But Tsukasa wasn't having it. "You think that will work? You underestimate my friends and the people of this village. We'll stop you every time." The group of friends all stood together, ready to defend their village and their friend Tsukasa. Daisuke's grin widened as he held Tenten hostage, pointing his katana at her throat. Tsukasa's expression turned serious as he stepped forward, his hand moving towards his kunai pouch. "Stop right there, Tsukasa," Daisuke said, "or I'll kill her." Tsukasa's eyes narrowed as he studied Daisuke. "Let her go," he said, his voice calm but firm. Daisuke chuckled. "I don't think so. You see, I've always wanted to fight you, Tsukasa. And now that I have the chance, I'm not going to let it slip away." Tsukasa sighed. "You're making a big mistake, Daisuke. I don't want to fight you." Daisuke shook his head. "It's too late for that. The only way this ends is with one of us dead." Tsukasa's grip on his kunai tightened. He was about to make his move when he noticed Tenten giving him a subtle nod. Tsukasa understood what she meant and nodded back. On the count of 3, Tsukasa said, 1, 2, 3. Tenten ducked just as Tsukasa threw his kunai. Daisuke was caught off guard, and Tsukasa took advantage of the opportunity. He moved in quickly, dodging Daisuke's clumsy attacks and striking him with a swift karate chop to the neck. Daisuke fell to the ground, unconscious. Tsukasa helped Tenten to her feet and sighed. "I really didn't want to fight him," Tsukasa said. "But he left me no choice." Tenten nodded. "I know. You did what you had to do." Tsukasa looked at her and smiled. "Thanks, Tenten." The two of them walked away, leaving Daisuke lying on the ground. After Tsukasa subdues Daisuke, the authorities arrive and take him into custody. He's tried and found guilty for his crimes, and as punishment, he's sent to the blood prison. Tsukasa and his friends watch as the rogue shinobi is taken away, and they all breathe a sigh of relief that he won't be able to harm anyone else. Tsukasa turns to Tenten, who he had saved from Daisuke's grasp, and asks if she's okay. Tenten nods, a grateful smile on her face. "Thanks, Tsukasa," she says. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come to my rescue." Tsukasa smiles back at her, glad that he was able to help. "Of course, Tenten. That's what friends are for." As they walk away from the scene, Tsukasa feels a sense of satisfaction that justice has been served. He knows that there will always be those who seek to cause harm, but he's grateful for the friends and allies he has who help him stand up against those who would do evil. Tsukasa nervously stood in front of Tenten's door, his heart pounding in his chest as he rehearsed what he wanted to say. He had finally worked up the courage to ask her out on a real date, and he didn't want to mess it up. When Tenten answered the door, Tsukasa couldn't help but stare in awe. She looked stunning in her black dress and her hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Hey, Tsukasa," Tenten said, smiling warmly at him. "What's up?" I was wondering if you'd like to go out with me tonight," Tsukasa said, trying to sound confident. Tenten's eyes widened in surprise, but then she smiled. "I'd love to, Tsukasa." They spent the evening exploring the hidden leaf village, walking hand in hand and laughing as they talked about their dreams and hopes for the future. Tsukasa took Tenten to his favorite ramen stand, and Tenten showed him her favorite spot to watch the sunset. As the night drew to a close, Tsukasa walked Tenten home, stopping outside her door. "Tenten, I had a great time tonight," Tsukasa said, nervously rubbing the back of his head. "I was wondering if maybe we could do this again sometime?" Tenten smiled and leaned in, giving him a soft kiss on the cheek. "I'd like that," she said, before turning and disappearing into her house. Tsukasa stood there for a moment, feeling like he was on top of the world. He couldn't wait to see where their relationship would go from here. Tsukasa was walking through the streets of the hidden leaf village, enjoying the cool breeze on his face. As he turned a corner, he spotted Hinata and Hanabi walking towards him. "Hey, Tsukasa!" Hinata called out, smiling warmly. Tsukasa grinned and waved back. "Hey, Hinata, Hanabi. How are you two doing?" "We're good," Hanabi replied. "We were just on our way to the Hyuga estate." "Oh, cool," Tsukasa said. "I haven't been there in a while. Mind if I tag along?" "Of course not," Hinata said with a smile. As they made their way to the Hyuga estate, they were greeted by Natsu Hyuga, the maid of the Hyuga family. "Hello, Tsukasa," Natsu said with a polite bow. "It's good to see you again." "Good to see you too, Natsu," Tsukasa replied with a nod. Hinata and Hanabi led Tsukasa inside the estate, showing him around the beautiful gardens and traditional architecture. They stopped at a small pond, where they sat down on a bench to rest. "It's so peaceful here," Tsukasa remarked, looking out at the serene pond. "Yeah, it is," Hinata agreed. "I love coming here to relax." Hanabi smiled. "You should come more often, Tsukasa. It's always great to have you around." Tsukasa grinned back. "Thanks, Hanabi. I'll definitely make more time to come visit." They sat there for a while, enjoying each other's company. As the sun began to set, Tsukasa bid them farewell and made his way back home, feeling grateful for such wonderful friends. Tsukasa was walking around the market area in the hidden leaf village, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. Suddenly, he felt someone grab his arm and pull him to the side. Tsukasa stumbled a bit before realizing it was Tenten who had grabbed him. "Tenten, what's going on?" Tsukasa asked, looking at her in confusion. "Those two guys were bugging you. I had to save you," Tenten said with a smile, gesturing to two shinobi who were giving Tsukasa annoyed looks. Tsukasa's cheeks turned slightly red as he realized that Tenten had just saved him from a potentially embarrassing situation. "Oh, thank you, Tenten. I appreciate it." "No problem," Tenten said with a grin. "I couldn't just let those two idiots mess with you." Tsukasa couldn't help but feel grateful for Tenten's actions. He had always admired her strength and bravery, and her willingness to stand up for him only made him like her even more. He was just about to say something when Tenten suddenly leaned in closer, causing Tsukasa's heart to race. "You know, Tsukasa, if you ever need someone to protect you, I'm always here," Tenten said with a playful wink. Tsukasa's blush deepened as he realized how close Tenten was to him. He couldn't help but feel flustered by her words, but he also couldn't deny how much he enjoyed being around her. Thanks, Tenten. I'll keep that in mind." Tenten grinned at him before letting go of his arm. "Alright, well, I should get going. See you later, Tsukasa." Tsukasa watched as Tenten walked away, feeling a mix of emotions. He couldn't deny that he had a crush on her, but he also didn't know how to express his feelings. For now, he decided to focus on getting stronger so that he could protect Tenten just as she had protected him. Tsukasa walked with Sakura and Ino towards a secluded training ground. They had all agreed to work together to improve their abilities, and Tsukasa wanted to learn some new techniques. As they walked, Tsukasa reached out and took both Sakura and Ino's hands in his, causing them both to turn bright red. "I'm really grateful for your help," he said, smiling at them. "I know I have a lot to learn, but I trust you guys to teach me." Sakura and Ino both tried to act tsundere, pulling their hands away and pouting, but they couldn't help but blush at Tsukasa's touch. "You're such a dense guy," Ino muttered, looking away. Sakura nodded in agreement. "Yeah, you're always so focused on training and missions. You never notice anything else." Tsukasa laughed, scratching the back of his head. "I guess I can be pretty clueless sometimes." As they reached the training ground, Tsukasa let go of their hands and began to focus on learning. Sakura and Ino worked together to teach him the basics of sensory and medical ninjutsu, but they couldn't help but steal glances at him every now and then. Tsukasa may have been dense when it came to their feelings, but they both knew that they would do anything to help him improve. Tsukasa walked silently through the village cemetery, the wind blowing gently and rustling the leaves on the trees. He finally arrived at Tayuya and Chino's graves, bowing his head respectfully. "It's been a while," he said softly. "I hope you're both doing well wherever you are." He paused for a moment, as if listening for a response, but of course, there was none. Tsukasa took a deep breath and continued. "I've been doing my best, you know. Trying to be the kind of shinobi you would be proud of." He looked down at the flowers he had brought and arranged them carefully. "I know I still have a lot to learn, but I'm trying." As he turned to leave, he noticed Naruto in the distance, standing by Jiraiya's grave. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to approach. "Hey, Naruto," he called out, walking towards him. "Mind if I join you?" Naruto turned towards Tsukasa, a small smile on his face. "Of course, man. It's good to see you." He gestured to the grave. "Just talking to Ero Sennin. You know how it is." Tsukasa nodded, a somber expression on his face. "Yeah, I know what you mean. I just came from visiting Tayuya and Chino's graves." He paused for a moment, then continued. "It's hard, you know. To lose someone you care about." Naruto's expression grew serious as he looked at Tsukasa. "Yeah, it is. But we have to keep moving forward." That's what they would have wanted. Tsukasa nodded, feeling a sense of comfort in Naruto's words. "You're right. I'll keep doing my best, for them and for everyone else." He looked up at the sky, taking in the beauty of the moment. "Thanks, Naruto. It's good to have someone to talk to." The sun was shining bright as the group of shinobi and kunoichi arrived at the beach. Tenten, Ino, Sakura, Senna, Karen, Konan, Keita, Kaharu, and Fu quickly ran towards Tsukasa, asking him to rub sunscreen on their backs. Tsukasa blushed, feeling a bit overwhelmed by their request, but he complied nonetheless. Sasuke and Naruto were playing beach volleyball while Hinata and Hanabi were building a sandcastle. Sai was busy sketching the beautiful scenery while Konan was meditating by the shore. Everyone was having a good time. As Tsukasa finished rubbing sunscreen on the girls, Tenten grabbed his hand and pulled him towards the water. They both blushed, feeling the warmth of each other's touch. Meanwhile, Hinata and Hanabi were putting the finishing touches on their sandcastle. Naruto and Sasuke joined them, adding their own unique touches to the castle. As the day went on, everyone continued to enjoy themselves. They played games, had a barbecue, and watched the sunset. Tsukasa and Tenten stole a few glances at each other but were too shy to say anything. Eventually, the group headed back to the village, tired but happy. It was a great day, filled with laughter and fun. Tsukasa, Tenten, and Senna were all hanging out at Ichiraku Ramen after spending the day at the beach. Senna was trying her best to capture Tsukasa's attention with her bubbly personality, constantly giggling and making jokes. Tenten, who was sitting next to Tsukasa, couldn't help but feel jealous as she watched Sena's attempts. "Tsukasa-kun, did I ever tell you about the time I went on a mission with Naruto and we ended up getting lost in the woods for 3 days?" Senna said, leaning towards Tsukasa and batting her eyelashes. Tenten rolled her eyes and took a sip of her ramen, trying to ignore the conversation. But when Senna placed her hand on Tsukasa's arm, Tenten couldn't hold back her frustration any longer. "Hey, Senna, can you pass me the soy sauce?" Tenten said, cutting in and reaching for the bottle on the table. Senna pouted but handed over the soy sauce. Tsukasa looked at Tenten, noticing her irritation. "Is everything okay, Tenten?" he asked, placing a hand on her shoulder. Tenten shrugged and gave him a small smile. "I'm fine, Tsukasa. Just enjoying my ramen." But as the night went on, Tenten couldn't shake the feeling of jealousy that was simmering inside her. She knew she had feelings for Tsukasa, but she didn't want to ruin their friendship by making a move. As they walked back to their homes, Tenten decided to speak up. "Hey, Tsukasa, can we talk for a moment?" "Sure, what's up?" Tsukasa said, turning to face her. Tenten took a deep breath. "I just want to say that I appreciate our friendship a lot. And I don't want anything to come between us, especially not someone like Senna." Tsukasa raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she's always trying to get your attention and it's making me feel like I'm not good enough," Tenten admitted, feeling her cheeks flush. Tsukasa chuckled. "Tenten, you're more than good enough. I value our friendship a lot too. And as for Senna, I think she's just being friendly." Tenten sighed in relief. "Thanks, Tsukasa. I just needed to hear that." Tsukasa smiled at her. "Anytime, Tenten. Now let's get some rest. We have a mission tomorrow, remember?" Tenten nodded and they both said their goodbyes before heading home. As Tenten laid in bed that night, she couldn't help but feel grateful for Tsukasa's reassurance and friendship. Tsukasa quickly pulled away from Senna as she leaned in for a kiss, placing his hand over her mouth to stop her. Everyone around them stopped what they were doing and turned to look at them, surprised at the sudden interruption. "Senna, what are you doing?" Tsukasa asked, trying to keep his voice calm. He could feel his heart racing and his cheeks turning red, but he knew he had to stay in control of the situation. "I just wanted to show you how much I care about you," Senna replied, looking up at him with big doe eyes. Tsukasa sighed inwardly. He knew Senna had a crush on him, but he couldn't return her feelings. He had feelings for Tenten, and he knew he couldn't just ignore them. "I appreciate your feelings, Senna," he said, removing his hand from her mouth. "But I can't return them. I'm sorry." Sena's face fell, and she looked down at the ground, feeling embarrassed. The others around them looked away awkwardly, not wanting to intrude on the moment. Tenten, who had been watching from a distance, felt a pang of jealousy in her chest. She had been avoiding Tsukasa because of her own feelings for him, but seeing him reject Senna made her realize that she couldn't keep avoiding him forever. As Senna ran away, tears streaming down her face, Tsukasa realized he had hurt her feelings. He turned to the others who were watching the scene unfold with curious expressions on their faces. "I need to go talk to her," Tsukasa said before quickly chasing after Senna. He found her sitting alone on a nearby bench, still crying softly. Tsukasa sat down next to her and gently placed a hand on her back. "I'm sorry, Senna," he said sincerely. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I can't return your feelings. My heart belongs to someone else." Senna sniffled and wiped her tears away. "I know," she said quietly. "I just couldn't help myself. I've liked you for so long, and seeing you with Tenten just hurts." Tsukasa nodded understandingly. "I'm sorry," he said again. "But you're an amazing person, Senna. I'm sure you'll find someone who loves you just as much as you love them." Senna managed a small smile at his words. "Thank you," she said softly. Tsukasa stood up, offering his hand to help her up as well. "Come on," he said with a smile. "Let's go back and rejoin the others." Senna nodded, taking his hand as they walked back to the group. Tenten noticed them approaching, and Tsukasa could see the look of concern on her face. "I'm sorry for causing a scene," Senna apologized to everyone. "I'll try to be more respectful of Tsukasa's feelings from now on." Everyone nodded, accepting her apology. Tsukasa took a deep breath, relieved that the situation was over. He knew he needed to be more careful with how he treated Senna in the future, but for now, he was just happy to be back with his friends on the beach. Tenten was walking alone in the streets of the Hidden Leaf Village when a hidden star Jonin approached her. "Hey there, beautiful. What are you doing all alone?" the Jonin said, flashing her a flirtatious smile. Tenten raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "I'm just running some errands," she replied curtly. The Jonin leaned in closer. "Well, how about I show you a good time instead?" Tenten was about to retort when she saw Tsukasa walking towards them. She quickly thought of a plan and turned to the Jonin. "Actually, I can't. My boyfriend is coming this way." The Jonin scoffed. "Yeah, right. I don't see any boyfriend." Before Tenten could reply, Tsukasa arrived, looking sternly at the Jonin. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, putting an arm around Tenten's waist. The Jonin's expression immediately changed to one of fear as he recognized Tsukasa's reputation as a powerful shinobi. "And no problem at all," he stammered, backing away. Tsukasa tightened his grip on Tenten's waist, giving the Jonin a menacing look. "Good. You better leave now before I change my mind." The Jonin quickly scurried away, leaving Tenten and Tsukasa alone. Tenten let out a sigh of relief, grateful for Tsukasa's help. "Thanks for playing along," she said, smiling at him. Tsukasa grinned back. "No problem. Anything for my girlfriend." The Jonin suddenly turned around and shouted, "If you two are really a couple, then show me a kiss." Tenten blushed, not wanting to kiss Tsukasa in public, but Tsukasa leaned in and pressed his lips against hers, effectively silencing the Jonin. The Jonin walked off disappointed, and Tenten and Tsukasa shared a laugh. The hidden star Jonin made a pervy joke towards Ino and Tsukasa was not having it. He leaned in towards Ino and whispered, "Use your mind-body switch jutsu on him and embarrass him." Ino nodded, activated her jutsu, and had the Jonin doing embarrassing movements in front of everyone. Tsukasa stepped forward and held Ino to support her as she maintained the jutsu. Ino felt Tsukasa's touch and blushed slightly. As the jutsu ended and the Jonin walked off embarrassed, Ino turned to Tsukasa and gave him a grateful smile. "Thanks for helping me out," she said, before planting a friendly kiss on his cheek. Tsukasa blushed a little but smiled back, happy to have been there for her. The four of them quickly surrounded the Jonin, who tried to back away but was blocked by their combined effort. Tsukasa stepped forward, his eyes flashing with determination. "You're not going to get away with this," he said, his voice firm. The Jonin scoffed. "And what are you going to do about it?" Tsukasa glanced at his friends, and they nodded in agreement. Without another word, the four of them attacked, their fists and feet flying as they took down the Jonin. Sakura punched him in the face, and Sasuke followed up with a kick to the ribs. Naruto used his shadow clone jutsu to surround the Jonin and pummel him from all sides, while Tsukasa used his speed and agility to dodge the Jonin's attacks and land his own blows. Finally, the Jonin lay on the ground, groaning in pain. Tsukasa and the others tied him up and attached the note to his shirt, before walking away, satisfied that they had taught him a lesson. As they walked, Sakura turned to Tsukasa and said, "Thanks for standing up for us, Tsukasa." Tsukasa smiled, feeling grateful for his friends. "Of course, Sakura. We always have each other's backs." As Tsukasa and Hiyashi were playing shogi, they heard a commotion outside. They both went to check and saw a Jonin harassing Hinata and Hanabi. Tsukasa's eyes flashed red as he glared at the man, causing him to freeze in fear. "You dare to harass members of my family?" Tsukasa's voice was cold and menacing. "As a member of the Hyuga clan, I won't tolerate such behavior." The man stammered, trying to apologize and make excuses, but Tsukasa wouldn't have any of it. He grabbed the man by his collar and lifted him up effortlessly. "I suggest you leave now and never come back," Tsukasa said, his grip tightening on the man's collar. "Or I'll make sure you regret it." The man nodded frantically, and Tsukasa let him go. The man ran away as fast as he could, leaving behind a scared and shaken Hinata and Hanabi. Tsukasa turned to his sisters and kneeled in front of them. "Are you both okay?" he asked, his voice soft and gentle. Hinata and Hanabi nodded, tears in their eyes. Tsukasa hugged them both tightly, comforting them. "Don't worry," Tsukasa said, his voice soothing. "I'll always be here to protect you. You're my family, and I'll always look out for you." Hiyashi watched the scene silently, a small smile on his face. He was proud of his adoptive son, who had shown his strength and loyalty to his family. As they were hanging out together, Tsukasa would poke Hinata and Hanabi, getting their attention. "Hey, do you guys have any advice on dating?" he asked. "I'm not really used to this kind of thing." Hinata would smile and say, "Well, I think it's important to be honest and open with your feelings. And listen to the other person, too. Communication is key." Hanabi would nod in agreement. "And don't be too pushy or overbearing. Take things slow and let things develop naturally." Tsukasa would take their advice to heart and decide to ask his adoptive father, Hiyashi, for some advice as well. Later that day, he would approach Hiyashi while he was playing shogi and ask him about love and dating. Hiyashi would look up from the board and give Tsukasa a small smile. "Love is a complicated thing, Tsukasa," he would say. "It requires patience, understanding, and trust. And when you find someone you care about deeply, it's important to cherish and protect that person." Tsukasa would nod, taking in Hiyashi's advice. He would then gather up the courage to ask Tenten out on a date and try to make her his girlfriend. As Tsukasa, Hinata, and Hanabi approached the gates of Konoha, they could see their friends waiting for them. Tenten was with Team 7, and as they got closer, Tsukasa's nerves began to set in. He had taken the advice of his siblings and father to heart, and he was determined to ask Tenten out on a date. "Hey, everyone!" Hinata called out as they approached. "We're ready to go." Naruto turned to greet them, a wide grin on his face. "Hey there, little sis," he called out to Hinata before turning to Tsukasa. "You ready for this mission, Tsukasa?" Tsukasa nodded, feeling his heart begin to race. He couldn't stop thinking about Tenten and how he was going to ask her out. But he tried to put those thoughts aside and focus on the mission at hand. "Yeah, I'm ready," he replied, trying to sound confident. Tenten smiled at him, and Tsukasa felt his heart skip a beat. He took a deep breath and mustered up the courage to speak. "Hey, Tenten," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was wondering if maybe, after the mission, you might want to go out with me? Like, on a date?" Tenten's eyes widened in surprise, and Tsukasa felt his heart racing even faster. He couldn't tell if she was going to say yes or no. But then Tenten smiled and nodded. "Sure, Tsukasa," she said. "I'd love to go out with you." Tsukasa felt like he could float away on cloud 9. He was overjoyed that Tenten had said yes, and he couldn't wait to go on their first date. As they all headed out of the village, Tsukasa was still beaming with happiness. As Gaara, Kankuro, and Tamari approached the Konoha shinobi, they were greeted with a warm welcome. "Thanks for coming on such short notice," Gaara said. "We have a bit of a problem here in the hidden sand village." "What kind of problem?" Naruto asked, ever the curious one. "There are some rogue ninja causing trouble in the area," Kankuro replied. "They're not to be underestimated. We've been trying to take care of them, but we could use your help." "We'll do whatever we can to help," Tsukasa said, his eyes scanning the area for any potential danger. Tamari couldn't help but feel a bit flustered around Tsukasa, but she knew that they were better off as friends. "Glad to have you guys on board," she said, trying to play it cool. The group set off towards the location where the rogue ninja were spotted, with Tsukasa still feeling a bit nervous about asking Tenten out on a date. He tried to focus on the mission at hand, but his mind kept drifting back to his romantic interests. As Tsukasa pointed at the 3 rogue ninjas with dark chakra aura, everyone including Gaara sighed as they knew what was about to happen. Suddenly, Tsukasa's eyes began to glow red with his Ketsuryugan, taking control of him. He ran outside, ready to take on the rogue ninjas with his genjutsu. However, the rogue ninjas were quick and managed to dodge his attack. One of them grabbed Tsukasa by the arm and tossed him into 3 houses, causing a loud crash. As Tsukasa struggled to get back on his feet, the other rogue ninja delivered a double kick, sending him to the ground. The rest of the group rushed outside to help Tsukasa, but they were met with a fierce attack from the rogue ninjas. It was clear that these weren't ordinary enemies, and Tsukasa's Kekkei Genkai may not be enough to defeat them. Tsukasa slowly got back on his feet, his eyes still glowing red with his Ketsuryugan. He knew he couldn't let his emotions control him, but he couldn't help feeling angry and frustrated at himself for not being strong enough. With his determination renewed, Tsukasa charged forward, ready to take on the rogue ninjas once again. As Tsukasa lay on the ground, groaning in pain from the attack by the rogue ninjas, his friends and allies rushed to his side. But instead of offering him help, they began to hit him on the head and shoulders. "Ow, hey guys, what's that for?" Tsukasa protested, trying to shield himself from the blows. "That's for being so reckless and putting yourself in danger," Sakura scolded him. "You could have been killed, you idiot," Sasuke added, landing a particularly hard punch. Hinata and Hanabi looked on with concern, but they also knew that their brother had been careless and needed to be taught a lesson. Gaara and his siblings simply shook their heads, wondering how someone with such powerful abilities could be so foolish. "Next time, think before you act," Tenten chided him, landing a final smack on the back of his head. Tsukasa nodded in agreement, feeling embarrassed and ashamed for his actions. He knew that he had let his emotions and his Kekkei Genkai get the better of him, and he promised himself that he would be more careful in the future. "I'm sorry, everyone," he said, bowing his head in contrition. The group sighed, but they also knew that Tsukasa was sincere in his apology. They helped him to his feet and they all turned to face the rogue ninjas, ready to finish the mission and protect the hidden sand village. As Tsukasa lay on the ground, groaning in pain from the attack by the rogue ninjas, his friends and allies rushed to his side. But instead of offering him help, they began to hit him on the head and shoulders. "Ow, hey guys, what's that for?" Tsukasa protested, trying to shield himself from the blows. "That's for being so reckless and putting yourself in danger," Sakura scolded him. "You could have been killed, you idiot," Sasuke added, landing a particularly hard punch. Hinata and Hanabi looked on with concern, but they also knew that their brother had been careless and needed to be taught a lesson. Gaara and his siblings simply shook their heads, wondering how someone with such powerful abilities could be so foolish. "Next time, Think before you act, Tenten chided him, landing a final smack on the back of his head. Tsukasa nodded in agreement, feeling embarrassed and ashamed for his actions. He knew that he had let his emotions and his kekkei genkai get the better of him, and he promised himself that he would be more careful in the future. "I'm sorry, everyone," he said, bowing his head in contrition. The group sighed, but they also knew that Tsukasa was sincere in his apology. They helped him to his feet and they all turned to face the rogue ninjas, ready to finish the mission and protect the hidden sand village. As they were apprehending the rogue ninjas, a sudden pain shot through Tsukasa's head as a rock hit him. He stumbled back, holding his head, and turned to see a mischievous-looking genin from the hidden sand village standing nearby, grinning. "Hey, watch it!" Tsukasa yelled, feeling irritated at the interruption. The others looked at Tsukasa and then at the genin. Naruto, who was always quick to take action, lunged at the genin, but Gaara held him back. "Wait, Naruto. Let's hear what he has to say," Gaara said calmly. The genin stepped forward, still grinning. "Sorry about that. I couldn't resist. My name's Shiro. I just wanted to see if you were as tough as they say." Tsukasa rolled his eyes. "We're on a mission, kid. This isn't some kind of game." Shiro's grin faded a little. I know. Sorry again. Can I help you guys with anything?" The group exchanged glances, but Gaara spoke up. "Actually, yes. We could use some extra help in tracking down the rest of these rogue ninjas." "Are you up for it?" Shiro's eyes lit up. "You bet I am." Tsukasa still felt a bit annoyed, but he couldn't deny that they could use all the help they could get. "Fine. Just stay out of the way, kid." And with that, the group continued on their mission, with Shiro tagging along behind them. As Tenten and Shiro were walking through the village, Shiro suddenly turned to Tenten with a sly grin on his face. "You know, Tenten," he said, "I think Tsukasa is in love with you." Tenten's eyes widened in surprise. "What? Where did you get that idea?" Shiro chuckled. "Oh, just a hunch. But I also happened to mention it to Tsukasa earlier, and he seemed pretty embarrassed about it." Tenten couldn't help but blush at the thought. She had always had a soft spot for Tsukasa, but she never imagined that he might feel the same way about her. Before they could continue their conversation, they were interrupted by Naruto and the rest of their team who had been looking for them. Tenten tried her best to hide her blushing face, but Naruto noticed something was up and teased her about it. "Hey, Tenten, did Shiro confess his love to you or something?" Naruto joked, earning a playful punch from Tenten. As the group continued on their mission, Tenten couldn't help but think about what Shiro had said. She stole a few glances at Tsukasa, wondering if there was any truth to it. Meanwhile, Shiro couldn't help but laugh to himself, knowing that his little comment had caused a bit of commotion within their group. As Tenten wiped her tears, Tsukasa turned to Shiro and Riku, anger seething in his eyes. "Who do you think you are, messing with our feelings like that?" Tsukasa growled. Shiro and Riku smirked, clearly enjoying the chaos they had caused. "We were just having some fun," Shiro said nonchalantly. Tsukasa's fists clenched as he glared at the two troublemakers. "This is not a game," he said firmly. "You have no right to manipulate our emotions like that." Tenten stood by his side, her own anger simmering. "You have hurt us both," she said, her voice shaking. "I trusted you as my friends, but you betrayed that trust." Shiro and Riku looked taken aback by the seriousness of the situation. "We didn't mean to hurt you," Riku said, his tone more contrite. Tsukasa shook his head. "It's too late for apologies," he said. "You have shown us your true colors, and I don't think we can be friends anymore." With that, he turned and walked away, Tenten following closely behind. Shiro and Riku watched them go, feeling guilty for their actions. As they walked away, Tsukasa put a comforting arm around Tenten's shoulder. "Don't listen to them," he said softly. "You mean everything to me." Tenten looked up at him, her tears still fresh on her cheeks. "You mean everything to me too," she whispered. They continued walking. the support they gave each other helping to ease the pain that Shiro and Riku had caused. Tenten sat alone in her room, feeling dejected and hurt. She couldn't believe that Shiro and Riku would do something like that to her and Tsukasa. The kiss from the mysterious Jonin had felt so real, and she had been mortified when she realized it was a transformation jutsu. Meanwhile, Tsukasa was sitting outside, staring up at the stars. He couldn't stop thinking about what had happened earlier, how he had seen Tenten kissing someone else, even if it wasn't real. He felt like a fool for getting so jealous and upset over it. Suddenly, there was a knock on Tenten's door. She hesitated for a moment, then opened it to find Hinata and Hanabi standing there. "Tenten, we're going to the gravesite to talk to Neji and our other friends. Do you want to come with us?" Hinata asked gently. Tenten nodded, feeling grateful for their kindness. She followed them outside, where she found Tsukasa waiting for them with a solemn expression on his face. "Tsukasa, are you coming with us?" Hanabi asked. Tsukasa nodded, taking Hinata and Hanabi's hands. Tenten hesitated, but then decided to join them, feeling like she needed to talk to Tsukasa. As they walked to the gravesite, the group was quiet, lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived, Tsukasa knelt down in front of Neji's grave and began to speak. "Neji, I know you're not here with us anymore, but I still think about you every day. You were like a brother to me, and I miss you so much." Hinata and Hanabi knelt down beside him, their hands on his shoulders. Tenten stood behind them, watching silently. "I know we've all been through a lot, but I'm grateful for the time we had together. And Tenten, I'm sorry for what happened earlier. I was foolish to let Shiro and Riku's words get to me. I want to make things right between us," Tsukasa said, looking up at Tenten. Tenten felt her heart soften at his words. She walked over and knelt down beside them, placing her hand on Tsukasa's shoulder. "I forgive you, Tsukasa. I was hurt by what happened, but I know it wasn't your fault. We're still friends, right?" Tenten said, giving him a small smile. Tsukasa's face lit up with relief and happiness. "Of course, Tenten. We'll always be friends." The group spent a few more minutes at the gravesite, talking and remembering their lost loved ones. As they walked back to their quarters, Tenten felt a sense of peace and happiness. Even though things had been rough, she knew that they would all make it through together. Tsukasa and Tenten stood in front of their friend group, both looking nervous and embarrassed. The tension was palpable as everyone waited for them to speak. Finally, Tenten broke the silence. "Tsukasa, I have something to tell you," she stuttered. Tsukasa looked at her with anticipation. "What is it, Tenten?" I love you," Tenten blurted out, her face turning bright red. Tsukasa's eyes widened in surprise. "What? Tenten, I love you too." The group erupted into cheers and applause as Tsukasa and Tenten hugged each other, still blushing furiously. "I can't believe we both feel the same way," Tsukasa said with a laugh. Tenten smiled at him, relieved and happy. "Me neither. But I'm glad we can finally be honest with each other." The group continued to celebrate and tease the newly confessed couple, but Tsukasa and Tenten couldn't help but feel a weight lifted off their shoulders now that their feelings were out in the open. Tsukasa and Tenten were walking hand in hand, enjoying each other's company, when they noticed two Jonins glaring at them. Tsukasa recognized them as Hisahito and Ginjiro, two Jonins who were always looking for trouble. Hisahito spoke first. Well, if it isn't Tsukasa, the last chinoik of the leaf. And look at him, with a girlfriend. I'm surprised someone like you could get one." Ginjiro chimed in. "Yeah, we heard about your weird sisters. Looks like they rubbed off on you too." Tsukasa's eyes narrowed. "You two better watch your mouths." Hisahito snickered. "Oh, what are you gonna do? Cry?" That was the last straw. Tsukasa charged at Hisahito, and Tenten watched in amazement as her boyfriend moved with incredible speed and precision. Ginjiro tried to join the fight, but Tenten took care of him with her weapons. The fight was over within minutes, and Hisahito and Ginjiro were lying on the ground, unconscious and wet. Tsukasa turned to Tenten. Are you okay? Tenten smiled. I'm fine, thanks to you. Tsukasa grinned. Good. Let's get out of here before they wake up. As they walked away, Hinata and Hanabi watched from a distance. They were relieved to see their brother was okay and impressed by his fighting skills. Hinata whispered, I'm glad Tsukasa has someone like Tenten by his side. Hanabi nodded. Me too. Let's go home and make dinner for them. Hinata smiled. Sounds like a plan. The group of Tsukasa, Tenten, Hinata, Hanabi, and Hiyashi were enjoying a meal together, laughing and sharing stories. Tsukasa had a serious expression on his face, and everyone could tell he had something important to say. Father, I have something I want to discuss with you, Tsukasa said, catching everyone's attention. Hiyashi nodded, indicating for Tsukasa to continue. I want to become the next head of the Hyuga clan, Tsukasa said. I want to protect our village, our family, and our friends. And I also want to create a division where people can join to protect the cages from the allied villages, from the leaf, to sand, to sound, to stone, and to cloud. Everyone was quiet, taking in Tsukasa's words. Tenten looked at him with admiration in her eyes, proud of his dedication to protect their village and loved ones. Hiyashi spoke up after a moment. Your goals are ambitious, Tsukasa, but I have no doubt that you will accomplish them. I will support you in any way I can. Hinata and Hanabi nodded in agreement, their faith in their brother unshaken. Tsukasa's idea lit up the room with positivity, and they continued to discuss their future plans, excited about what was to come. Tsukasa walked into the training grounds where his friends were gathered, sporting a new hairstyle. His hair was shorter than usual and styled in a spiky manner. Hey guys, what do you think of my new hairstyle? Tsukasa asked, showing off his new look. Some of his friends gave him compliments, saying it looked cool and more mature. Others, however, weren't so sure, stating that they liked his old hairstyle better. "Aw, I don't know, it looks weird to me," Tenten said, scrunching her nose. Kaharu, on the other hand, smiled and nodded in approval. "I like it, Tsukasa. It suits you." Sakura and Ino both glanced at each other before giving him their honest opinions. "Honestly, we liked your old hairstyle better," they said in unison. Tsukasa shrugged, not too bothered by their opinions. "I just wanted a change, you know? I've had the same hairstyle for so long." His friends then noticed that he wasn't carrying his katana with him, which was unusual for Tsukasa. "Hey, where's your katana?" Keita asked, looking at Tsukasa curiously. Tsukasa's expression grew solemn as he replied, "I don't have it with me anymore. After the Delta situation, I realized that I don't want to rely on weapons anymore. I want to rely on my own abilities and skills." His friends nodded in understanding, respecting his decision. They knew that Tsukasa was a capable ninja, even without his katana. "Well, I think your new hairstyle looks good on you," Conan said, smiling at him. "It's a nice change." Tsukasa grinned in response, feeling grateful for his friend's opinions and support. Tsukasa and Naruto were walking together in the park when they saw Hinata approaching them. Tsukasa, knowing that Hinata had feelings for Naruto, decided to give them some space and let them be alone. He said, "Hey, Naruto, I'm gonna go grab some drinks from the vending machine. You and Hinata can catch up for a bit." Naruto smiled and thanked him as Tsukasa walked away. As soon as Tsukasa was out of sight, Hinata and Naruto stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to say. Hinata blushed and looked away, while Naruto scratched the back of his head. Suddenly, Tsukasa used his slug messaging jutsu to send them information about the mysterious man they had seen earlier. The sudden influx of information startled both Naruto and Hinata, causing them to jump and look around. Hinata asked, "What was that, Tsukasa-kun?" Tsukasa walked back over to them with a can of soda in his hand and said, "Oh, sorry about that. Just sending you guys some information. Did I scare you?" Naruto laughed and said, "Yeah, you kinda did. I thought we were being attacked or something." Hinata smiled and said, "Thank you for the information, Tsukasa-kun." Tsukasa shrugged and said, "No problem. You two enjoy your time together." He then walked away, leaving Naruto and Hinata alone once again. As they continued to talk, Naruto couldn't help but think about how lucky he was to have friends like Tsukasa and Hinata. The mysterious man, Otsutsuki, had his sights set on Tenten. She tried to fight him off, but he was too powerful. Tsukasa quickly stepped in, grabbing the man's fist with ease. The ground around them shook as a crater formed beneath their feet. "You're not hurting anyone else," Tsukasa growled. The Otsutsuki laughed, amused by Tsukasa's bravado. He lifted his other hand, ready to strike, but Tsukasa was too quick. With a swift kick, he sent the man flying through a nearby building. Everyone stood in shock as the building crumbled around the Otsutsuki's body. Tsukasa dusted himself off before turning back to his friends. "Is everyone okay?" he asked, checking on Tenten. "Yeah, thanks to you," she replied with a grateful smile. The group looked on in awe at Tsukasa's strength and determination. They knew they could always count on him to protect them. Tsukasa ran through the forest with Tenten and Fu in his arms, carrying them effortlessly. The other members of the team were trailing behind him, trying to keep up. "Tsukasa, how are you so fast?" asked Naruto, panting heavily. "I've been training," replied Tsukasa with a grin. "Plus, Tenten and Fu are not that heavy." Tenten blushed at his words while Fu giggled. The other girls in the team, including Sakura, Ino, Keita, Kahoru, and Senna, looked on with jealousy. As they neared the forgotten village of the Otsutsuki clan, a group of rogue ninjas attacked them. Tsukasa quickly put down Tenten and Fu and engaged in battle. He used his speed and agility to dodge their attacks and counter them with his Ketsuryugan. The other members of the team joined in and together they defeated the rogue ninjas. Tsukasa picked up Tenten and Fu again and they continued their journey to find Hanabi. The other girls couldn't help but feel a little jealous of how Tsukasa was carrying Tenten and Fu so easily. "Why is Tsukasa always so nice to them?" muttered Sakura under her breath. Ino overheard her and replied, "Maybe because he likes them?" The other girls looked at each other in shock before bursting out into giggles. They couldn't believe that they were all crushing on Tsukasa and competing for his attention. Meanwhile, Tsukasa, Tenten, and Fu arrived at the forgotten village of the Otsutsuki clan and began their search for Hanabi. As Tsukasa and his friends were searching for Hanabi in the village of the Otsutsuki clan, a sudden gust of wind blew past them. The sky darkened and lightning crackled, causing them to turn their attention towards a figure standing before them. It was a tall and imposing man, his long hair and robes billowing in the wind. The man's eyes glowed a deep shade of purple as he stared down at them with a menacing smile on his face. His chakra felt heavy and oppressive, causing Tsukasa and his friends to feel a sense of dread wash over them. "I am Kaizu Otsutsuki," the man spoke in a low, menacing voice. "And I have come to put an end to your meddling in our affairs." Tsukasa and his friends stood their ground, ready to fight against the powerful Otsutsuki. They knew that this would be a difficult battle, but they were determined to protect their village and their loved ones at any cost. As Kaizu Otsutsuki stood menacingly in front of Tsukasa and his friends, a shiver ran down Tsukasa's spine. This Otsutsuki was different from the one he had encountered before. His chakra was immense, and his aura radiated danger. Tsukasa tried to stay calm and focused, but his grip on his katana tightened. Without warning, Kaizu lunged at Tsukasa with incredible speed, striking him with a powerful blow. Tsukasa stumbled back, struggling to maintain his balance. Kaizu followed up with a barrage of punches and kicks, forcing Tsukasa to dodge and weave. Tsukasa realized that Kaizu was too powerful to fight head-on, so he decided to use his wits. He lured Kaizu towards a nearby bridge, hoping to use the terrain to his advantage. As Kaizu charged towards him, Tsukasa dodged at the last moment, causing Kaizu to crash into the bridge. Tsukasa took advantage of the opportunity and attacked Kaizu with all his might. However, Kaizu was not an easy opponent to beat. He countered every move Tsukasa made and even managed to knock him through 2 abandoned houses. As Tsukasa struggled to get back on his feet, his friends arrived to help. But Tsukasa refused to ask for their help, determined to defeat Kaizu on his own. He activated his clan's Kekkei Gekkei, which gave him enhanced strength and speed. The 2 warriors clashed once again, trading blow for blow. In the end, Tsukasa managed to land the final blow on Kaizu, causing a bright light to form around him. Before he disappeared, Kaizu told Tsukasa about Toneri and the other Otsutsukis that were somewhere in space. Tsukasa relayed this information to his friends and the Leaf Village using his slug communication jutsu. They knew that they had to prepare for whatever threat the Otsutsukis posed. As they arrived back in the hidden Leaf Village, Tsukasa was greeted by a barrage of scolding from his friends. Ino, Tenten, Hinata, Sakura, Naruto, Kiba, Sasuke, Sai, Shikamaru, Rock Lee, Shino, Fu, Keita, Kahoru, Senna, and even Hanabi were all giving him a piece of their mind. "How could you be so reckless, Tsukasa?" Ino exclaimed. "You could have died out there, idiot." Tenten added. "We were worried sick about you," Hinata said, her voice filled with concern. Tsukasa hung his head in shame, knowing that they were right. He had been too stubborn and had almost gotten himself killed in the process. Tsunade, who had heard about the situation, appeared from nowhere and smacked Tsukasa on the head in a comedic way. "You should know better than to put yourself in harm's way like that," she scolded. "You're lucky to have friends who care about you enough to risk their lives to save you." Karen, Konan, and Shizune looked on with worry, knowing that Tsukasa's recklessness could have dire consequences. Feeling remorseful for his actions, Tsukasa and his friends all put their hands together and promised to protect each other with their own lives from now on. Tsukasa followed Hanabi through the Hyuga clan's compound, looking around curiously at the intricate architecture and design. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching and turned to see Hinata walking towards him. A smile spread across his face as he approached her. "Hey, Hinata! What brings you here?" Tsukasa asked, his hand reaching up to pat her on the head. Hinata blushed slightly at the gesture, feeling a warm sense of comfort from Tsukasa's touch. "I was just looking for my sister," she replied. Tsukasa nodded understandingly, his eyes flickering towards Hanabi, who was still searching for the scroll they needed. "I'm actually here on a mission with Hanabi. We're looking for a scroll that could help us with our mission." Hinata's eyes widened in surprise. "You're working with Hanabi? That's great to hear," she said with a smile. Tsukasa smiled back at her before turning to continue his search for the scroll. As he walked away, he couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth in his heart, grateful to have such wonderful people in his life. As Tsukasa regained consciousness, he struggled to stand up on his own. His mind was racing with thoughts of Hinata and Toneri's plans. He knew he had to act fast if he wanted to save her. He looked around and saw his friends still fighting off the Otsutsuki members that were left. "Tenten, we need to hurry and catch up with Toneri. He's taken Hinata," Tsukasa said urgently, his voice strained. Tenten nodded. "I know, but we need to regroup with the others first. We can't leave anyone behind." Tsukasa knew she was right, and they quickly made their way to where their friends were fighting. Tsukasa could see the worry on their faces as they saw him injured and struggling. Naruto rushed over to him. "Tsukasa, are you okay? What happened?" Tsukasa took a deep breath. "Hinata's been kidnapped by Toneri. He took my chakra and left to his castle." Sakura and Ino both gasped in shock. "What are we going to do?" Tsukasa clenched his fists. "We're going to save her. But we need to plan carefully." They quickly formulated a plan, and Tsukasa took charge. He knew he had to stay focused if he wanted to save Hinata. They set off towards the Otsutsuki castle, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As soon as they arrived at the Otsutsuki castle, Tsukasa and his friends were greeted with a fierce battle against the Otsutsuki soldiers. Each member of the group fought valiantly, but they knew that their true goal was to reach Toneri and rescue Hinata. However, as soon as they reached Toneri, Tsukasa activated his Ketsuryugan against him. Toneri, in turn, used his Tensigan to immobilize Tsukasa and absorb his chakra. Hinata looked on in fear as Tsukasa lay unconscious on the ground, thinking that Toneri had killed him. However, Naruto used his nine-tailed chakra mode to defeat Toneri and save Hinata. Naruto and Hinata then confessed their love for each other, and Tsukasa and the others were overjoyed for them. As they walked back to the village, everyone was worried about Tsukasa's well-being. But when he finally woke up, Tenten kissed him on the cheek, causing jealousy from Fu, Keita, Kahoru, Senna, Konan, Karen, Sakura, and Ino. Overall, Tsukasa and his friends had been through a lot, but they were grateful to be able to return home safely. They knew that they would always have each other's backs, no matter what challenges they may face in the future. The scene opens with a somber atmosphere as the Hyuga family gathers around Hiyoshi's bedside. Tsukasa, Hinata, and Hanabi are all there, holding their father's hands and whispering words of comfort to him. Hiyoshi is weak and barely conscious, his breathing labored as he fights to stay alive. Tsukasa looks up at his sisters, tears streaming down his face. "He's not going to make it," he says, his voice choked with emotion. "We have to accept that." Hinata nods, her own eyes red-rimmed with tears. "I know," she says softly. "But it's still hard." Hanabi squeezes their father's hand, her own tears falling unchecked. "We'll be okay," she says, her voice trembling. "We have each other." As they continue to hold their father's hands, Hiyoshi takes one last breath and his body goes still. The room falls silent as the family grieves for their loss. Days pass, and Tsukasa assumes his new role as head of the Hyuga clan. He spends long hours poring over the clan's records and attending meetings with other village leaders. Hinata and Hanabi support him in every way they can, but the weight of his new responsibilities is heavy. One day, Tsukasa visits his father's grave, which now lies next to Neji's. He kneels before the stone marker and places a bouquet of flowers on it. "Father," he says, his voice low. "I'll do my best to carry on your legacy. I'll protect the clan and the village, just like you did." He stays there for a long time, lost in thought, before finally standing up and walking away. The future of the Hyuga clan rests on his shoulders now, and he's determined to do whatever it takes to make his father proud. The scene opens with Tsukasa, Hinata, and Hanabi standing together in front of their father's grave. The Hyuga clan members are seen in the background mourning the loss of their leader. Tsukasa turns to his sisters and puts his hand on their shoulders. "We have to be strong," he says. "Our father entrusted us with the future of the Hyuga clan, and we have to live up to his expectations." Hinata and Hanabi nod in agreement, tears streaming down their faces. "We know," Hinata replies softly, "and we'll do everything we can to support you, Tsukasa." Tsukasa takes a deep breath and looks out at the gathering of clan members. "I'll make sure that the Hyuga clan remains strong and prosperous," he declares, "and I'll protect my sisters no matter what." The Hyuga clan members turn to Tsukasa with respect and admiration, knowing that he is the best choice to lead them in the future. They start to bow down, one by one, showing their loyalty and support. The scene fades out as Tsukasa and his sisters stand together in front of their father's grave, ready to face the challenges that lie ahead. The Hyuga clan members gathered in the main hall, mourning the loss of Hiyoshi. Tsukasa stood at the front, flanked by Hinata and Hanabi on either side. "Everyone, I will be taking over as the temporary head of the clan," Tsukasa announced. "But my goal is to train and guide my little sister Hanabi, so that she can one day take over as the permanent leader of the Hyuga clan." The clan members murmured in agreement, knowing that Tsukasa was indeed a bit stubborn at times and may not always make the most diplomatic decisions. Tsukasa turned to Hanabi and gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Hanabi. I'll be here to guide you every step of the way. We'll make the Hyuga clan stronger than ever." Hinata gave a small smile of approval. proud of her brother's dedication to their family and clan. The clan members nodded in agreement, accepting Tsukasa's decision and placing their faith in the future of the Hyuga clan under his leadership. As the events of the Otsutsukis died down and life in the Hidden Leaf village returned to normal, Tsukasa found himself running into Temari once again. The two had met during the Chunin exams and shared a brief interaction, but since then they had not seen each other. Temari approached Tsukasa as he was walking through the village, greeting him with a smile. They exchanged pleasantries and caught up on each other's lives since the last time they saw each other. Temari then asked Tsukasa if he would like to join her for a walk, to which he agreed. As they walked through the village, Tsukasa and Temari talked about everything from their experiences during the Chunin exams to their current responsibilities as ninja. As they walked, they began to realize that they had a lot in common, especially when it came to their love of fighting. Eventually, Temari took Tsukasa to a secluded spot near the outskirts of the village. She revealed that she had been looking for a sparring partner, and had heard that Tsukasa was a formidable fighter. Tsukasa was flattered and excited by the prospect of sparring with Temari. As they began to spar, Tsukasa quickly realized that Temari was a skilled fighter. Despite this, he was able to hold his own, and the two of them had an intense battle. As they fought, they began to develop a mutual respect for each other's abilities. Meanwhile, Fu, Keita, Kahoru, Senna, Konan, Karen, Sakura, Ino, and Tenten had all been spying on Tsukasa and Temari from a distance. They were surprised to see the two of them getting along so well, and were curious about what was going on between them. After their sparring session, Temari and Tsukasa sat down to catch their breath. They talked about how much they had enjoyed fighting each other, and how they should do it again sometime. As they talked, Fu, Keita, Kahoru, Senna, Konan, Karen, Sakura, Ino, and Tenten emerged from their hiding spot, revealing that they had been spying on them. Tsukasa was embarrassed, but Temari just laughed it off. She explained that she and Tsukasa had just been sparring, and that there was nothing romantic going on between them. The group all shared a laugh, and then went their separate ways. Despite the embarrassment, Tsukasa was grateful for the experience. He had enjoyed sparring with Temari, and had learned a lot from the experience. He was also glad to have made new friends in Fu, Keita, Kahoru, Senna, Konan, Karen, Sakura, Ino, and Tenten, who he had not known were spying on him. Overall, it had been a fun and memorable day. The sun was setting on the beautiful winter day as Tsukasa and Tenten held hands and walked with their children, Sakuya and Kaide, through the snow-covered forest. They had just finished their family photoshoot, and now they wanted to enjoy the rest of the evening together. As they walked, Tsukasa couldn't help but feel grateful for everything that had led him to this moment. He looked over at Tenten, who was smiling brightly at their children, and he knew that he had made the right choice in marrying her. Suddenly, a snowball hit Tsukasa in the back of the head, and he turned around to see his old friend Naruto grinning at him with a mischievous look in his eyes. Tsukasa laughed and shook his head, realizing that Naruto had never changed. "Hey, what's with the long faces?" Naruto asked, joining them on their walk. "This is supposed to be a happy occasion." Tenten chuckled and playfully pushed Naruto. "We're not sad, Naruto. We're just enjoying the moment." Naruto nodded and looked at Tsukasa with pride in his eyes. "You know, you've come a long way, Tsukasa. From being a lone survivor to leading a division of elite shinobi, you've accomplished so much." Tsukasa smiled gratefully. "Thanks, Naruto. I couldn't have done it without my friends and family." As they walked, they were joined by the rest of their friends, each congratulating Tsukasa and Tenten on their beautiful family and successful careers. They reminisced about old times and caught up on new ones, laughing and joking the whole way. The sun had fully set by the time they arrived at the reception hall, where their friends and family were already waiting for them. Tsukasa took a deep breath and looked around the room, taking in the familiar faces and warm smiles. He felt content, knowing that he had everything he had ever wanted. After a heartfelt speech from Naruto, Tsukasa took the dance floor with Tenten. holding her close as they swayed to the music. As they danced, Tsukasa knew that his life was complete, and that he was ready for whatever the future held for him, his family, and his division.
Hey man, you need to sit your motherfucking ass.